of Agriculture spokesman Michael Lowry spoke to Onion reporters about just how many servings of someone else's food roommates should be consuming on a day-to-day basis.
Under the new guidelines, roommates should eat at least 4 portions of someone else's grains per day, including 1 to 2 cups of already opened cereal. Of course, this is all in addition to the 8 to 16 swigs of milk and orange juice spaced out over a few days.
Lowry emphasized that many aspects of the new roommate food pyramid are unchanged from the previous version, including a recommended daily intake of 24 ounces of lunch meat straight from the bag and 5 to 7 weekly finger scoops of Erica's peanut butter.
Remember to limit your intake of sugar and sweets from half-open containers, especially if they're Jessica's, because she'll definitely notice.
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Hey, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Don't forget to find our podcast, Good Morning Liberty, every single day of the week on your favorite podcast app.
The hair of the century, Nathaniel Paul Thurston. Every time I look over there, it's just ridiculous.
I'm going to go get it all cut off. I'm sick of messing with this crap. That's terrible.
You know, for your age, I don't know what percent of the population is allowed to keep their hair. Why God picks some people over others.
Life isn't fair.
But that's the truth. Life is not fair.
Some people don't have hair, but they
some
have
guys
a lot of money.
Have all the luck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Some people look really good with no hair. It's fine. And
hey, I'm sure Elon Musk here definitely had hair transplant.
His amount of hair went up with his net worth.
Yeah, sure did.
That's the same amount of hairs as net worth that he had
accumulated.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's actually a big part of it, I'm pretty sure. So this is Good Morning Liberty. We talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaning every single day of the week. When we want to, smash follow, subscribe, leave a rating and review, and go interact with us on X. I saw some of you people listened on Friday's episode where I said, go to one of our posts and say, hey, I heard you mention on the show that we should comment or retweet or whatever, and here I am doing that. Thank you guys so much for doing that. You actually helped us in the algorithms by doing that, and that's something so simple you can do. Good AM Liberty on X. Leave a comment on one of our posts. Like one of our posts. Repost one of the posts if you want to. Seriously, the tyrannical Elon algorithms are tough to get through when you don't say crazy all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? When you just say like, oh, hey, here are the facts about this thing. Mm-hmm. No one cares about that.
No
one just wants facts about stuff.
No.
Facts
are boring.
That's super boring. What's not boring is giving people a bunch of money to sign a petition.
To sign a petition, apparently.
To sign a petition is what's not boring. And so we'll talk about this.
To win $1 million.
It's clever.
So I have a surprise for you, which is that we're going to be awarding $1 million to randomly to people who have signed the petition every day from now until the election.
People like money.
Yeah,
that's
what you just heard.
One of the challenges we're having is how do we get people to know about this petition? Because the legacy media won't report on it. Not everyone's on X. So I figure, how do we get people to know about it? Well, this news, I think, is going to really fly. So
he's right about that.
Yeah.
This news is flying, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the initial reactions to this is that this is illegal. The sort of dumber version of it is that it starts off with he's paying people to vote, and that's not the case whatsoever. And then the next level, slightly further away from dumb, is that he's paying people to register to vote. And that's not true. He's not paying.
Technically.
He's not paying people to register to vote. And so in this system, there are people who get paid to get people to sign the petition. Each person that you get to sign the petition, I think you get $47 each time you get someone to sign
Depending
the
on
petition.
the state.
Yeah, depends on what state you're in. You're right.
I think in
Yeah.
Georgia you get $600.
There's one that's like 100, and so various amounts of money in different swing states. And then people who sign it, one lucky winner is gonna. And I don't know, is that only in Pennsylvania
in
that
qualified
they're doing
swing states?
is going to get $1 million.
If you are a registered voter in Nevada, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, I think even Florida's on there, which is weird because it's no longer a swing state. I'm wrong about that. Actually, it's not Florida. Anyway, the swing states: Pennsylvania, Nevada, those swing states, Georgia. Then if you sign the petition, then you have a chance to win $1 million.
We'll fact check that. The only thing I've seen is Pennsylvania for the $1 million part, but maybe it's every single one of them also. Regardless, the question here is he breaking the law? So Republicans Against Trump says, how's this legal? Elon Musk just announced that his super PAC will be awarding $1 million every day until the election to registered Pennsylvania voters who signed his super PAC petition. Then they cite U.S. code. Doesn't matter what the numbers are. Quote, whoever knowingly or willfully ... pays or offers to pay or accepts payment either for registration to vote or for voting shall be fined not more than $10,000 or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. Where's the DOJ? Well, the DOJ, no doubt, actually, they've got a team of 100 people working on this right now. So that's probably where they are, but they're moving at the speed of government, and they will probably at least bother him with investigations on this for quite some time, because the scheme is this. It's a petition to support the First and Second Amendment. And so you're just signing saying, I support the freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. But to sign the petition, you have to be a registered voter.
No.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
You can sign the petition.
I think you got to be a registered voter to sign.
No, to win the money.
Well, to win the money.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to win the money.
You can sign the petition. Anybody can sign the petition.
We'll check on that.
But to qualify for the prize, I read it this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, click on the link.
Which link?
Click
I don't
on the
have
link,
a
to the actual.
Let me go find this.
It's on Elon's page.
Some of the details here. The America PAC.
Yeah. It's on Elon's page. He tweeted it out for everybody to have the link.
He got the handle @America for this. I wonder how much you paid for that.
He owns the company.
Yeah. He probably kicked off some poor old veteran who signed up @America
15 years ago when Twitter first started.
Okay, what's going on with this? Maybe some of our people here on the in the Fed haters.
It's not
Club
long.
can look this
It's
up.
not long. Go to Elon's page.
Well, we're on the actual petition right now.
Oh,
well, Elon's page.
There's a link.
Yeah.
That he tweeted out. I saw it this morning.
Well, that could be 30 posts ago.
Well,
let's see here.
It's a picture. Scroll down. I'll tell you. Keep going. We're
going to find it.
It's an American flag picture.
Is it this one?
Nope.
No. Well, that's an American flag. Is it this one?
Nope.
It's an American flag. Let's see. We'll find it. Is it this
no,
one?
those are videos.
This one?
It's a picture.
Okay.
He literally says there's a link. I read it this morning. It's very easy.
Man, imagine winning $1 million for signing the petition.
Okay, you're getting
pretty
close.
Crazy. Am I getting close?
You're getting close.
It feels so far away.
The picture is a flag, but it's like a link you can click on.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll keep scrolling while we're talking about this until I see a picture with a flag in it and not videos with a flag in it. All right. So the question is this illegal? And the answer is actually no.
There it is, right there.
You can't. Yeah. Okay.
There.
Okay. We found it. Let's see. The First and Second Amendments guarantee freedom of speech and the right to bear arms. By signing below, I'm pledging my support for the First and Second Amendments. In appreciation for your support, you'll receive $47 for each registered voter you refer that signs this petition. So you only get paid if the person that signs is a registered voter. And our goal is to get 1 million registered voters in all these swing states. This expires, does that say October 21st? The program is exclusively
That's
open.
A special offer.
Okay, all right.
For those folks.
Each
They're at the
person
bottom.
may only sign once. Eligible people may only list one eligible person as their referrer. Signing the petition on behalf of another person is not permitted. Before payment is made, America PAC will verify the accuracy of all the information of the referrer and referee. Payments of $600 or more will require the referrer to provide an IRS W-9. To be eligible, both the referrer and the petition signer must be registered voters. So to get the money...
That's to be eligible, yes.
To get the money. All right, so what we just solved was that you can put your signature on the paper. To be involved in the money, you must be a registered voter. So the question is this illegal? It probably, technically, is not illegal.
It's close, though.
Yet is the answer. It probably will be illegal eventually, but maybe Musk or some of his people are the first people to think of this idea. I'm not sure how often this has happened before or if it's happened on this scale in the past, but in order to get the money, you have to be registered to vote. Okay. And so
now, just like the Fed Haters Club is saying, which you can go to by going to joingml.com, is that he's playing the gray area of the election laws.
Yeah.
Just like the DNC does.
Like ballot harvesting, stuff like that. I mean, people are going to get really mad about this because he's like paying people to vote. That's not what he's doing. He's not even paying people to register. He's saying, you get people to sign this. If they're registered to vote, you get money. Now, what's the incentive for you? You, as an individual, need to make sure that that person is registered to vote.
Well, you yourself need to register to vote.
You got to register. And for you to get money to get someone to sign this, you need to make sure they are also registered. So you got to incentivize them to do that as well. And if they want to make the $1 million, if they want to be in what's technically a sweepstakes, not a lottery, not a contest, a sweepstakes, which anyone can do in Pennsylvania, because people are talking about their law, well, then they got to be registered too. It's sort of paying people to register the vote, but it's
a backdoor.
But it's not.
Yeah.
And
not directly.
I can't wait if he wins. Like if Trump wins Pennsylvania, which by the way, he's actually on the 538
he's ahead
averages.
now.
He's up now in Pennsylvania.
God darn it, Nate! If you ain't gonna be eating your words come November 5th,
dude, I was just
6, honestly, because we won't find out until that night.
Just this morning, I was thinking about putting money on Kamala Harris to win on Polymarket. I mean, get a little bit more for your money if you make that bet.
Yeah.
So I was considering doing that. Believe me right now, if he wins, this is going to be one of the stolen election claims by people on the left. That Elon Musk came in and bought this election.
I thought they accept elections.
I'm telling you right now.
No, I thought the left accepted elections.
When they win, they do. That is right. They do accept it when they win. They're going to say, and here's the deal. Oh, get this. Ooh, you know what? Elon Musk is a Putin plant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's favorable to Vladimir Putin, buys this social media platform, has all this money, and then goes and pays for Donald Trump to win the election. That's what's going to happen. I'll tell you right now, that's what's going to happen.
Well, of course.
Governor Josh Shapiro is not happy about it.
Let me ask you about a development we learned about overnight. Elon Musk says he will be giving away $1 million every day to random voters who sign his Super PAC's petition. You are a former attorney general. Is this legal?
I think there are real questions with how he is spending money in this race, how the dark money is flowing, not just into Pennsylvania, but apparently now.
Does this seem like dark money to you?
It's in the open.
I mean, I know he's from Africa, but come on. That doesn't make any sense. This is like the brightest money we've ever seen. He just announced it on a stage. There was a crowd cheering about it.
Yeah.
They're talking about it right now.
It's on X.
It's literally not dark.
Yes.
Okay.
This is about as bright as money gets.
And yeah, like what people in the group are saying, he did not say it's illegal. He can't. He said there are questions about this.
Yeah.
So he knows it's not illegal.
Yeah, it's not illegal.
They might craft a law to stop you from doing this afterwards.
Yeah.
No doubt in my mind, this will be illegal.
As close to as close to illegal as you can get.
Yeah.
Without being illegal.
It literally is.
Yeah.
I know, he had a whole team of lawyers running down this entire thing, reading all the laws back and forth to make sure. Now the DOJ is probably going to make his life a living hell over this, just like they do on he's got like freaking 30 different investigations going on right now from
or more
different departments and stuff. So this will be one of the things. And people are complaining about how these billionaires are going to come in and win this election or change our elections, interfere in our election. Kamala Harris She raised about $230 million just in September. Okay.
She's crossed $1 billion there, Mark.
She's over $1 billion.
$1 billion raised.
She spent $275 million on ads just in September. Okay. And for people,
and Trump is still gaining ground.
And it's not working. That's how bad she is.
I think, what did Trump spend? 75 million, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
So 200 million
75.
less.
And he gained ground during that time.
He gained ground. That's all he's been doing is gaining ground.
That's wild. That is wild. And that's probably because he picked up that new job at McDonald's.
Yeah,
I would say. I think that's the big.
So too.
It's the.
I almost text you about it. I'll be like, "How ridiculous is this? It's so ridiculous."
Yeah. So he goes to McDonald's now. Just to be clear, just to be fair and honest and balanced. Not, I would say, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we made fun of Kamala Harris for packing Ziploc bags for hurricane survivors and for trying to plant a tree somewhere as if she needed to plant that tree. This is just as dumb.
So dumb.
Anyone who sees this and is like, that's my guy right there. He knows the struggles of me. He's going to fight for me. Anyone who sees this, it's dumb. Okay. It's fake.
That is true, Josh. He does. I think he does eat a lot of Big Macs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he does.
Mm-hmm. Look at him.
But the whole thing here is
he kind of looks like a walking Big Mac.
People calling him the Hamburglar, because of the felonies. But the thing here is that Kamala, at one point in time, said that she worked at McDonald's and that she did the fries, and there's no proof of her ever working at McDonald's. And so he's been saying that she was lying about that, as if, like, who cares? I literally don't care. Okay. She wants to start World War III.
This is like a third grade presidential election race.
Like, what is the McDonald's swing vote here?
My opponent claimed she worked at McDonald's. I'm going to go work there for a day to prove I'm better.
Now it said 1 in 8 people have worked at so 12.5% of people who have had a job have worked at McDonald's. You're one of them.
I have.
Right over there. Yeah. You stayed there 3 more months, you would have owned the freaking place.
I was I was well on my way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were on the way. And like in high school, basically.
Yeah.
Just coming out of high school. I mean, you're about to run the entire place.
I was.
But there's no reason for this to matter. There's no reason to get this warm and fuzzy feeling when you see this clearly fake thing that happened. You think they just went into a McDonald's. They were open for business that day.
Filled out an application.
Trump walks in and says, "I'm looking for a job." Candid camera. Oh my God. I can't believe we caught him saying that to the actual manager at McDonald's, and they just happened to take him on.
And the manager's wearing a sport coat and slacks.
And then just random people came through that day and they served it. No. I mean, Secret Service wouldn't even allow that to happen. The campaign would allow. The place was closed down. The entire thing was staged. Everyone that came through was vetted. Of course, because they would have to be. They're not going to allow just random people to come through the McDonald's while Trump is both running the fries and working the drive-through window.
I don't know that it was fully staged to that extent.
I mean, what someone could pull up to the drive-through window with a car bomb and blow the place up. I mean, it's got to be checked blocks away before that happens.
I don't know.
It's Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, this is the 18-second video.
I wanted to work at McDonald's, but I never did. I'm running against somebody that said she did, but it turned out to be a totally phony story. So, President Trump! Well, that's a good-looking group. Hello, everybody. I'm having a lot of fun here, everybody. Little pictures of it.
And, you know, that's the thing.
Look at all the fake news over there.
Hey, you know what? Whatever he's doing, it seems to be working right now. And I don't fault. I think we said this for.
So let me ask you this now.
Yeah,
who's going to win the election?
I told you I was thinking about putting money on Kamala this morning.
So you still think it's Kamala? I'm not going to say her name right. I don't care.
You don't care.
I don't.
It's just how racist you are.
No, I think it's so ridiculous. People mispronounce names all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
But now you're intentionally doing it.
You know how many times I've heard Javier?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or Jesus instead of Jesus. You know?
Yeah, I've heard that one a bunch too.
Right?
Yeah, people in Antioch call me Nathaniel.
Exactly.
You know? I'll go into the bank. They're like, "Hey, how you doing, Nathaniel?" I'm like,
yeah.
"It's Nathaniel." I refuse to speak to them until they put the right emphasis on the right syllable.
Yeah.
You know?
So Kamala. It's fine. You still think it's going to be Kamala?
I texted a friend the other day, a mutual friend of ours, lives in Colorado. And I said, "Who do you think's going to win the election?" And he asked me, and I said, "I think Kamala." I said, "Who do you think?" He said, "Well, if it's a fair," he said, "You know what I'm talking about."
Mm-hmm, I know.
You know what I'm talking about. He said, "If it's a fair election, I think Trump's going to win." And I said, "Yeah, me too. That's why I said Kamala."
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many people that are the deep state people. I'm sorry. I'm not saying 2020 was stolen by anyone other than the media.
Do you think Usher was at Kamala's event because she's guaranteeing not to release the Diddy tapes?
Diddy tapes. I think it's possible. Yeah. Usher and Mark Cuban there together, peeing on people,
God.
Anyhow.
So, is this it then? If Kamala wins, is Elon right? Is this it?
It's the last actual election.
Yeah.
We might have already had it.
Have they already won the game?
I guess
there will no longer ever be. You think that that's reality?
If Trump
wins. If that's true, then what's the next step? It sounds like the boog is coming.
I think the boog, but I don't trust the boog. It's going to be half feds. And I don't know, man. I think we'll go back to having normal Republicans who don't want to do all the things that Trump's, violate the norms, like getting rid of the Department of Education and not starting new wars and stuff like that. I think we'll go back to having Mitt Romney's and George Bush's, and then it'll be more like an actual contest each time because the deep state will be like, well, we win either way, so who cares?
Yeah.
But this time, the people that are look at all the folks that are like, Trump is a real threat to America, a threat to the country. They're all freaking terrible mass murderers. I tweeted something about it, like Trump can't get the vote of one single mass murderer. This is ridiculous. He's got the most felonies out of all the people, and not one mass murderer is supporting Trump. They all support Kamala, and those people, they pull a heck of a lot of strings. I don't know. There's some crazy stuff. And, I don't trust them.
I guess we'll see what happens.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From FSN in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world headlines. The former head of the fashion brand Abercrombie & Fitch stands accused of exploiting vulnerable young men eager for modeling contracts to traffic them. Mike Jeffries, who used to be the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and his British partner Matthew Smith, and a middleman, have been arrested on sex trafficking charges following an FBI investigation which was triggered by reports in the media. The trio are alleged to have spent millions of dollars on illegal trafficking activities. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken have discussed the need to capitalize on the killing of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. During Tuesday's meeting in Israel, Blinken also emphasized the need to get more aid into Gaza, according to the State Department. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The Israeli Prime Minister and the US's top diplomat discussed the need to secure the release of all the hostages and to end the conflict in Gaza in a way that provides lasting security for Israelis and Palestinians, according to the State Department. The statement said that the Secretary of State also pressed the need to ensure that aid reaches civilians in Gaza, something the US demanded of Israel earlier this month in a letter, warning that US military aid could be at risk. The State Department also said that Secretary Blinken pushed for a diplomatic resolution in Lebanon. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A new United Nations report released on Tuesday suggests that the impact of the year-long war in Gaza has set development back by about 69 years. The UN Development Programme, or UNDP, says the Palestinian economy may not be able to restore pre-war levels and advance forward even when the fighting ends. Jody Jacobs has more.
The report paints a grim picture of a post-war Palestine. The report estimates that poverty in Palestine will rise to 74% in 2024, affecting 4.1 million people. And that would include the 2.6 million people who are newly impoverished. It suggested that a comprehensive recovery and reconstruction plan, which will combine humanitarian aid with strategic investment and the lifting of economic restrictions, could help put the Palestinian economy back on track, but only by 2034. One of the authors says their projections confirm that a serious development crisis is unfolding, one that jeopardizes the future of Palestinians for generations to come. Jody Jacobs, New York.
The International Monetary Fund has raised its growth forecasts for the United States but cut them for China, warning of risks from conflicts, trade wars and high interest rates. Global GDP will remain at 3.2% this year and next. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
What's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? We are back. It's Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. And Free Talk Live, by the way, is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash with fees of less than a penny per transaction. Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies, and they are widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. I want to get into Tim Walz speaking to Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart is pressing him about the endorsement of the Cheneys. Here's how that sounded.
The Cheney thing, do we really have to do that?
Look, it goes broader than that. Look, Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift.
No.
That one.
No.
The shooting?
No.
Having the Cheneys on board?
Nah. You can't Dick Cheney or Taylor Swift. No.
We're a big tent.
What country did Taylor Swift get us to invade? No.
Yeah. No, don't you think, though, that, and I do this, I believe this, there is still a core group of folks out there, your point being, and not joke, the don't tread on me, the Reagan piece of this, the libertarian piece, but the constitutional piece, there are a lot of people out there. I think I think Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney give permission to those folks who want to find a reason to do the right thing.
Yikes. Dick Cheney giving permission to those folks. He does mention the Reagan type folks. He mentioned Don't Tread on Me and libertarians. And Dick Cheney coming on board. Let me tell you what. Now, as a libertarian, I can finally vote for a presidential ticket because Dick Cheney has endorsed it. This just shows you that Tim Walz is an idiot. I mean, that's the main thing that it shows you, but it also shows you he has no clue what libertarians are, what those values are whatsoever. Most libertarians believe that Dick Cheney is a war criminal. The chair of the Libertarian Party posted this morning that Dick Cheney belongs in Gitmo. Of course, most libertarians believe Gitmo shouldn't exist and never should have existed, but I get the joke. That's plenty fine. I think you got to ask yourself, which is what I've been asking myself, why is it that all of these war-mongering mass murderers seem to support the same person? You know, here's this knock against Trump. He's not supported by any of the mass murderers that we have out there in our society. And that's just too bad. And so when you see a mass murderer supporting someone who lied us into a war, who got us into wars that we didn't need to be in the first place, leading to the deaths of thousands of U.S. troops and hundreds of thousands of civilians overseas, you should vote for that person because of democracy, I guess. That's what you should vote for. Or maybe all these people just know that they're going to get what they want with Kamala Harris as the president. That's another potential option there. We're going to get into an interview with Josh Martins, who's part of Good Morning Liberty. He's also got a podcast called Martin's Minute. He's doing an interview speaking about the Ukrainian offensive into Kursk, and of course another war that I believe we should not be involved in whatsoever.
My name is Josh Martins, and joining me today is Alex Little. Now, Alex is an MS graduate of Georgia Tech, and he specializes in Russian and Central Asian affairs. He's also a contributor at Young Voices. So, Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So now you wrote an article for Newsweek about a month ago about the Ukrainian offensive into Kursk. And I'm really excited to go through that with you. But before we get there, why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got so passionate about kind of foreign affairs and the Russian and Central Asian regions in general?
Sure. So going into college, I've always been interested in sort of global affairs. And I've always found, so in high school, I actually studied Japanese because, I'm very interested in Asian cultures. But I read Crime and Punishment in high school, and that sort of opened my eyes to sort of the mysterious kind of aura of Russian culture as well. And I felt like it would be a more unique opportunity to sort of experience Russian culture. So I actually ended up studying abroad my second semester of my freshman year in college in Russia. I was at the Moscow State University, which is sort of their flagship university. And it was just a very formative experience for me, just meeting people from not only the former Soviet Union, but from Europe overall. And it really had a huge impact and made me want to continue learning more about Russian culture, improve my linguistics abilities in the language, and sort of my interest in foreign policies developed going from there. I actually heard a speech from Lawrence Reed from Foundation for Economic Education the last time I was in Russia, speaking about his experiences in communist Poland. And that sort of opened my eyes to sort of the think tank sphere, which is sort of where I've found myself for the past 3 or 4 years or so. In TC, I've been at the Heritage Foundation, the Woodrow Wilson Center, the Cato Institute, and most recently at the Quincy Institute. So that's sort of a bit of a background about me.
Awesome. Anyone that's done any traveling, I think it opens their eyes just to how rich cultures are around the world and just all the different people and stuff. And as a libertarian, I wish that we didn't have so much adversary, that we could just try peace, with all the other nations and stuff. And I think that more people that travel or experience those cultures, they tend to their eyes open that there's not so many, like evil people out there, and there's not a bunch of like people that are white as the pure snow. There's just a lot of people that are living their lives, and the world's just a shade of gray, and that's kind of the way that works. So the listeners, so let's get into your piece a little bit here. The listeners may or may not know that Ukraine launched a major offensive into Russian territory earlier this summer. And in your article, you wrote that this offensive may not have the outcome that Ukraine is hoping for. In fact, the title of your piece is, I quote, Ukraine's Kursk offensive could make peace harder to achieve. So why don't you expand on that a little bit? Because obviously we're hearing a very different take in the news about that. But expand on that. Why do you think this might backfire on Ukraine?
Sure. So I think Kyiv has sort of had a set of objectives in terms of their offensive in Kursk. So these include diverting Russian troops from the Eastern Front. It also includes using this Kursk territory as a future bargaining chip in future negotiations with Russia, potentially hoping to use it in some sort of trade with Ukrainian territory. And then it also hopes to rejuvenate Western support for Ukraine in this conflict, given that Ukraine is showing itself capable of being able to capture territory. However, from my estimation, things have not gone the way strategists in Ukraine have hoped. There's been no significant diversion of Russian troops. And in fact, Moscow has relied on significant numbers of troop reserves that is held back from Ukraine, coupled with airstrikes on Ukrainian armor, troop concentrations, fuel depots, and supply lines. And so meanwhile, while Ukrainian forces have suffered immense losses over the past couple of months, some estimations say 12 to 13,000 Ukrainian troops have lost their lives. And some Russian estimations, which of course should be taken with a grain of salt, are closer to around 20,000. And so the actual losses that Kyiv has suffered have likely not been accurately calculated, but I think it still shows that this offensive has really not panned out the way that Kyiv would have hoped. And whether Kursk is going to be a bargaining chip, I feel like that is also questionable, given that Kursk does have historical significance to Russia, given that it was a front of a major World War II land battle, often considered the largest land battle in history. But when compared to the strategic value of the lands in Ukraine taken by Russia, it does not equate to eastern Ukraine. And yes, and most importantly in my piece, I think that it really ends up squandering diplomatic negotiations, which I think are inevitable in this conflict, along with Ukraine not achieving its main objectives. And so I think that it's really counterproductive in that Ukraine does need to adopt a different strategy.
Yeah. So as far as troop counts go, they were, you're saying that they wanted to see Russia pull troops from the front lines and or the Eastern Front and move over there, and that didn't happen. But I imagine that Ukraine doesn't have as many troops, in reserve to replenish their losses. So this could, in just a natural state of attrition, this could be pretty painful for Ukraine because they're not able to replenish the losses that they've made. So if they're not, so as you said, if they're not getting that bargaining chip and they're not getting the release from the troops on the Eastern Front, then really they're bogging themselves down. Is that what you were basically saying?
Yes, absolutely. I think that Ukraine is facing immense demographic challenges that will not be rectified simply by continuing sort of misguided strategies, in my opinion. I think that for the sake of Ukrainian reconstruction and for the sake of rebuilding Ukrainian society, there needs to be an end to the bloodshed. There needs to be some sort of diplomatic solution. Otherwise, yes, Ukraine is facing significant manpower shortages, especially compared to Russia, which Russia faces its own demographic issues, but of course not to the same extent as Ukraine.
Sure. So I want to talk a little bit about the diplomatic side because that you brought up. Because I found in your piece it interesting that the reaction from Russia was almost immediate that any kind of future talks were down after this offensive, and it made me think about and I'm not an expert on Russian culture, but it seems that Russia has a very a very soft spot, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it gets very nervous when it comes to their motherland. And the last person that I had on to talk about this is that their borders are very indefensible. It's very open plains and stuff like that. So they're always very, very worried about an offensive into the motherland. So I imagine that as Ukraine wanted leverage, that actually probably scared Russia. Not scared is the right word, but invigorated the culture and the nationalism in Russia. How did Russia react to this offensive?
Yeah, so I definitely think that Russian hawks have been sort of emboldened and as a result of this Kursk offensive, because throughout this war, there have been more hawkish voices in Russia that have been critical of Vladimir Putin's, the way he's directed this war. Believe it or not, some in the West might perceive Vladimir Putin as sort of, the most hawkish of hawks, but that actually is not the case. And I think that strategists in Kiev hope to sort of bring the war to Russia, and that sort of the Russians will maybe forge some sort of rebellion and sort of demand an end to the war, but we don't really see that happening. It seems like Russians either sort of carry on with their daily lives, sort of detached from the conflict as they have been for the most part throughout the war, or they sort of want some sort of retribution for having to evacuate their homes, as many have had to do in Kursk. So I don't think that it's had the effect that many in Ukraine have hoped.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's turn to the West for a little bit. So some of the things that Ukraine has wanted since this incursion, since this offensive, is they've talked a lot about wanting to get long-range missiles and use long-range missiles against Russian targets inside of Russia. And we've said no to that. Now, obviously, we've heard that the Biden administration is wavering a little bit, but how do you think that Russia would react to that? And how do you think that the West, where would that move us if Ukraine was able to use long-range missiles from the United States or other NATO allies in Russian territory?
Yeah, it's kind of a scary proposition in the sense that we don't really know. So the Russians have talked about providing sort of countermeasures in terms of providing similar arms to the West's adversaries, potentially in the Middle East, and that could pose threats to the West. But Russia's nuclear strategy has been adopted as a result in recent weeks. And so that's extremely concerning. And the red lines, I think, are not as bright as it may seem. And Vladimir Putin's rhetoric in terms of implicating the West as direct combatants, if they were to provide long-range weapons to Ukraine to be used in Russian territory, I think it's deeply concerning. And we don't really know when the nuclear deterrence will fail until it ultimately does. So I think that it's an extremely risky proposition for the West to squander its own interests in staying out of not being considered a direct combatant in the war, given that Russia's nuclear arsenal is the only genuine threat to U.S. security in particular.
Yeah, and I was actually going to bring that up because one part in your piece that I found interesting is that you pointed out that this offensive does show that Russia isn't as big of a threat to the West as we had feared at the beginning of this conflict. If Ukraine can make an offensive like this, I don't see Russian tanks rolling into Poland and rolling into the rest Europe as they had talked about on the news. But one thing that strikes me is, and I want to say it was Jason Stapleton on his show once said this, that if you back somebody into a corner and give them only one option, they're going to fight, and they're going to fight with whatever they have. So if I guess what I got from your statement is that if they're not as big of a threat, but they still have this nuclear capability, then the West doesn't want to back them into a corner, right? Because then that's the one punch they have left. So how should the West change its tactics, given that we've see the difference in what we had thought with their capabilities? How should we change our tactics towards Russia?
So I think a good place to start is to at least consider Russia's security concerns in terms of NATO expansion, talks of NATO expansion into Ukraine. I think that we need to maybe adjust our open door policy in terms of our alliances and strategic commitments, because I don't think that those commitments ultimately serve the United States and its allies. And I don't think it serves relations between Russia and Ukraine, because it simply solidifies Ukraine as an adversarial state on Russia's borders. So I think there needs to be constructive dialogue and acknowledgement of legitimate security concerns, and, sort of discard any sort of hubris and sort of just having some sort of mutual understanding, I think is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of what I was thinking too. Like if they're not as big of a threat, but they have that nuclear capability, maybe it's time for us to talk to them and find a more diplomatic solution. Maybe they're not the adversary that they once were, and NATO needs to change their tactics and try and find a way to bring about peace with Russia and move forward, into the future. I'm always an advocate for open trade. I'm a libertarian. I always say where goods cross borders, armies usually don't. So, maybe that's a tactic that we can look at. Yeah. So, you wrote this article about a month ago. Why don't you give us kind of an update on to where the offensive is right now and what the state of this offensive is for Russia and Ukraine?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, the losses for Ukraine have been considerable. Meanwhile, Russia has been making considerable gains in the east, which is, of course, the most strategic point of the war. So I definitely don't think that this sort of gambit of Ukraine's has really, as I mentioned earlier, fulfilled the strategic goals. So as I advocate in the piece, I think that Ukraine will probably need to revert back to adopting a defensive posture through which it can achieve certain victories in terms of at least securing its established territories, because Russia throughout this war has really learned to adapt to Western weaponry, Ukrainian tactics on the battlefield. So Russia is only becoming stronger and stronger in terms of its strategic insight. So I think the longer this war goes on, the weaker Ukraine's prospects will be in terms of maintaining the sovereignty that it has and securing a bright future going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one last question for you. It's something that I ask everyone. So if you had the chance to make one change, you had a magic wand, you were king for the day or whatever, but you had the chance to make one change that would move us closer to liberty or open people's eyes to liberty. What would you do? What's something you would do?
So, keeping in the theme of foreign policy, I would say that we need to take seriously that foreign policy should be in the hands of the people and that Congress should play a much larger role in terms of war making. I think that the executive branch just has way too much power in terms of declaring war that may or may not be in line with American interests. So I think that the American people need to have more of a say in terms of what its government does in foreign affairs.
All right, absolutely. As a libertarian and one that's I mean I'm 44 years old. We've been at war for my entire life, one way or another. It's time to just give peace a try. So I absolutely agree with you there. And again, it brings it to the way it was supposed to be. The congressman or the senator worries about losing their job if they upset the people, and if the people are sick of war, that can happen. But the executive branch, for the first 4 years they worry about it. For the last 4 years, they don't care. So it definitely doesn't work. So why don't you tell the listeners where they can find more of your work?
Absolutely. So, my Young Voices page has my published articles that I've published throughout my Young Voices Fellowship. You can also find many of my pieces at outlets like Responsible Statecraft and The American Conservative. I've written quite a few pieces there. And I greatly appreciate you taking the time to interview me, and for those that take the time to read my work.
Absolutely. Do you have a Twitter handle that I can put up there too?
I do not currently have a Twitter handle. Maybe I'll be great one day to make one.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody should definitely go out and find your work. So, Alex, thank you so much for joining me today and providing this insight. It's very, very fascinating to learn more about what's happening in foreign policy, and we don't always get clear views over here, in the West with our media. So I definitely appreciate your perspective. And to all the liberty lovers out there, make sure you go online and check out Alex's stuff, and I'll provide some links in the show notes as well, like I always do. And while you're checking that out, hop over to goodmorningliberty.us and become a member of the Fed Haters Club. I can't promise you that all your dreams will come true if you become a member, but I can promise that you'll have fun chatting with some other liberty-loving folks, and we would definitely enjoy you being in there. So make sure you leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and support all the sponsors that support the show. They help us bring these interesting topics and these interesting people to you, so support them. So if you do all those things, I promise, I'm going to be back next time with another exciting person that you all need to know.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 2 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From FSN in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world headlines. The former head of the fashion brand Abercrombie & Fitch stands accused of exploiting vulnerable young men eager for modeling contracts to traffic them. Mike Jeffries, who used to be the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and his British partner Matthew Smith, and a middleman, have been arrested on sex trafficking charges following an FBI investigation which was triggered by reports in the media. The trio are alleged to have spent millions of dollars on illegal trafficking activities. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken have discussed the need to capitalize on the killing of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. During Tuesday's meeting in Israel, Blinken also emphasized the need to get more aid into Gaza, according to the State Department. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The Israeli Prime Minister and the US's top diplomat discussed the need to secure the release of all the hostages and to end the conflict in Gaza in a way that provides lasting security for Israelis and Palestinians, according to the State Department. The statement said that the Secretary of State also pressed the need to ensure that aid reaches civilians in Gaza, something the US demanded of Israel earlier this month in a letter, warning that US military aid could be at risk. The State Department also said that Secretary Blinken pushed for a diplomatic resolution in Lebanon. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A new United Nations report released on Tuesday suggests that the impact of the year-long war in Gaza has set development back by about 69 years. The UN Development Programme, or UNDP, says the Palestinian economy may not be able to restore pre-war levels and advance forward even when the fighting ends. Jody Jacobs has more.
The report paints a grim picture of a post-war Palestine. The report estimates that poverty in Palestine will rise to 74% in 2024, affecting 4.1 million people. And that would include the 2.6 million people who are newly impoverished. It suggested that a comprehensive recovery and reconstruction plan, which will combine humanitarian aid with strategic investment and the lifting of economic restrictions, could help put the Palestinian economy back on track, but only by 2034. One of the authors says their projections confirm that a serious development crisis is unfolding, one that jeopardizes the future of Palestinians for generations to come. Jody Jacobs, New York.
The International Monetary Fund has raised its growth forecasts for the United States but cut them for China, warning of risks from conflicts, trade wars and high interest rates. Global GDP will remain at 3.2% this year and next. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at Benjamin Netanyahu's possible strategy now in Lebanon. Following the killing of Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah and the Israeli killing in Gaza last week of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, the Americans are hoping that the Israeli leader might be persuaded back onto the diplomatic track. But Prime Minister Netanyahu insists his war will continue. Mark Lyle Grant is Britain's former national security advisor and the UK's former permanent representative at the United Nations.
Lebanon, unfortunately, is one of those countries where the state armed forces are not as strong as independent militias. Hezbollah's army is undoubtedly more powerful than the Lebanese armed forces. The way that Netanyahu is talking, he has his enemies both in Hezbollah, in Hamas, in Iran to some extent, the Houthis in Yemen, on the back foot at the moment. And I don't think he is minded to ease up that military pressure on Israel's enemies at a time when they are on the ground, as it were, and allow for some sort of ceasefire which would give them some respite, potentially to rebuild their military strength. So I think this conflict will continue for some time to go.
And in recent days, Israel has broadened its targets, going after financial institutions in Lebanon, believed essentially to serve as Hezbollah's banks. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And a reminder now of the hour's top story. The former head of the fashion brand Abercrombie & Fitch stands accused of exploiting vulnerable young men eager for modelling contracts to traffic them. Mike Jeffries, who used to be the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and his British partner Matthew Smith, and a middleman, have been arrested on sex trafficking charges following an FBI investigation which was triggered by reports in the media. And that's the latest world news from Feature Story News. I'm Nina Maria Potts reporting.
A new report from the National Center for Education shows that an alarming 10% of U.S. high school students graduate without basic object permanence skills. According to the study, a growing number of American seniors are lagging behind their international counterparts when it comes to the crucial knowledge that things don't just disappear if you're not looking at them.
Because it exists even if your eyes can't see it. Am I making sense?
No. U.S. high schoolers have dropped to 17th in science, 25th in math, and a troubling 180th place in the basic cognitive awareness most humans develop as toddlers. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan is asking Congress to fund increased after-school disguise and reveal programs.
It's time to get the kids excited to learn the most obvious mental concepts that make us capable of functioning.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to do better. It's just I don't know how I'm supposed to learn anything if I don't even have a teacher.
I'm still here, Vanessa.
Some educators worry that too much focus placed on object permanence might take away from other important skills, such as not touching hot things that could burn you.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live. All right, there is a video going around right now that was brought to my attention, and it's a video of Trump talking at the Economic Club of Chicago, an interview by Bloomberg News. There's a little portion here where he says something about the transgender children thing, the gender-affirming care thing, although he doesn't mention that. It's like a 3-second clip of him saying something that has just been repeated over and over and over again. And there's some libertarians saying something like, well, you guys don't like Chase because of this stance. And it turns out Trump has like the same stance or even worse. And so what's the real reason that you don't like Chase? This person said, by the way, this video has 1 million views, says from Billboard, Chris says, what the heck is this? Trump says we don't want transgender operations without parental consent. JD Vance, you need to have a talk with Donald Trump, Team Trump, you too. And then he gives his stance on gender affirming care and surgeries on minors. I will play the video here in a second, but I want to show you the one that I'm actually responding to. Been a good conversation with these people on Twitter. Nothing contentious. No one's being mean. Nothing like that. We're just talking about it. Okay. So Brittany 4PA says, it's wild how Chase for Liberty got heat from the same people who backed RFK and are now jumping on the real Donald Trump train. Trump is now echoing his exact stance on gender-affirming care. That would be echoing Chase for Liberty's stance on gender-affirming care. So what's the deal? Libertarians, where's the consistency? Here is the clip. Like I said, it's a few seconds of him saying something, and it's just repeated a bunch of times. So here we go.
We need borders. We need fair elections. We don't want men playing in women's sports. We don't want transgender operations without parental consent. We don't want transgender operations without parental consent.
Okay, you get the, he said we don't want transgender operations without parental consent. Now, if that is his stance, I would completely disagree with that. Full disclosure, if it's your first time listening right now, if you came to hear my stance on this video, I'm not voting for Donald Trump. Also seems like I'm not voting for Chase for Liberty, and it's because of the gender-affirming care thing. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. And, you know, if this is Trump's stance, we don't want transgender operations without parental consent, then that's really bad, and that's something that a lot of people should really pay attention to, like if that's the main reason that you don't like Chase. And so it's kind of up to you whether or not you believe that that's what he thinks on this. You shouldn't have surgeries on minors even with parental consent. And that's actually, by the way, Chase's stance. He draws a line there with surgery. He says that the hormone blockers, the puberty blockers and the hormone replacement therapy, stuff like that, that stuff is fine with parental consent. I'm assuming just with parental consent. I have not heard Chase's stance on these states that will like take ownership of your kids and put them through this stuff if the parents disagree. I'm saying I haven't heard his stance on that. That's something I want to ask him about if we get him on again before the election. But even with parental consent, you wouldn't want to have the surgeries on the minors. So it's a couple ways of looking at this, and I'm going to try and be as fair and balanced and objective as possible. One way you look at it is that this is Donald Trump's stance, that surgeries on minors are fine as long as their parents consent to it. Or he's picking out something super crazy from the left, something that, by the way, probably doesn't happen a lot, like actual surgeries without parental consent. That would mean more than likely that the state has come in and taken ownership of the kids away from their parents. So that would kind of be the case that happens, because I don't think an actual surgery would happen without parental consent. I do think that the puberty blockers and things that's way more common to be happening without parental consent, for sure. Our stance here is that it doesn't matter if your parent consents to child abuse. That child abuse is wrong, and that these things are child abuse. You can look at it as he agrees with this, or you can say he tried to say something really crazy that the left is doing, and he's trying to point out that the left is really crazy. And so he's thinking, well, they allow minors to have surgery without parental consent, and that's ridiculous. And we don't want to have minors having surgery without parental consent, without going fully into what the idea is. That's literally all he says in this interview. I went and found it, and thanks to the people that brought this to my attention, and I asked them, like, where is this in this video? Because I couldn't find it. It happens right here in this interview.
Somebody said they're going to pull the plug in Arizona. They're going to give it up because it looks like we're quite a ways ahead. I think we're doing well. Look, this is a party, the Republican Party, of common sense. Forget about conservative, liberal. We're, let's say conservative, but we're really a party of, we need borders, we need fair elections, we don't want men playing in women's sports, we don't want transgender operations without parental consent. You know, there's so many things, but it's 99.9% is common sense. It really is common sense. And I like to say it, I don't know if anyone said it in the past, but I say we're really a party of common sense, and we want to have great people in our country. I want to have a lot of people come in so that you have your choice and so that they have choice. I want to, I have a good heart. I have a heart.
All right. So if you blink, if you think about blinking, you would miss it. But in fact, I was taking a drink of water, and I'm just assuming that he said it just then. But I kind of zoned out there for a minute because I've already listened to it for a few times today. You can go to what Trump has said previously on this if you wanted to disprove this idea. I don't think Trump wants surgeries with or without parental consent. So on the Trump talking point, it kind of seems like he's speaking off the cuff there and didn't fully articulate a plan. If you can imagine such a crazy world. I'm not trying to give him, I don't go out of my way to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I also try to not take a 3-second clip of something and decide that he just announced a new policy proposal and he's actually to the left of Chase Oliver on this, and that this is what he believes on this issue. I could go to other things that he has said and other things that people have written. This is from 2023. Trump vows to stop gender-affirming care for minors if reelected president. Let's see. In a video he released, he said he will punish doctors who provide gender-affirming care to minors and push schools to promote positive education about the nuclear family. Let's see. He would task several agencies to police and ultimately stop gender-affirming care for minors, which he equated to child abuse and child sexual mutilation. He said he would prohibit any federal agency from working to promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age, not just for minors. Okay. Let's see. This is from this next one is on Forbes, and this is in May of 2024. Trump said on day one he would reverse the Biden administration's expansion of Title IX that will prohibit federally funded schools from preventing transgender students from using bathrooms, locker rooms, and pronouns that align with their gender identities. He said he would block doctors who provide gender-affirming care from Medicare, Medicaid, forbid federal agencies from actions to promote the concept. I just said that stuff. Let's see. And tasked the Justice Department with investigating the medical industry to see if they, quote, deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich. That's a possibility. Also, they just might not know the long-term side effects because there haven't been very many studies done on these things. I spent a lot of time researching this, and the answer is they haven't done a ton of studies, and the studies that they have done ended with the conclusion that they need more studies before they can say whether or not this is a good or a bad thing. Good or bad. They're like, yeah, we don't know. Okay. Let's see. Severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for educators who suggest to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body. So this is from May of 2024. It doesn't really seem like he came out saying yesterday or the day before in this interview with Bloomberg that he just doesn't want minors to have surgery without parental consent, but it's fine with parental consent, which seems like you'd also be okay with gender affirming care at that point if you're okay with surgeries. I think that we just have a incoherent sentence or plan or thought that happened from Donald Trump. That's what it seems like to me. I've said several times I'm not going to vote for Trump, and I'm not going to vote for Chase. If I feel the most compelled to vote for anyone, some people might not like this who are listening right now. I would feel the most compelled to vote for Chase. Economics is the most important thing to me, and then war. All those things, but this gender affirming care thing is way up there. And, Chase has this thing where, the parents and the doctors, they should be able to get together and make this decision. I question whether or not the parents are making a fully informed decision. I think that they are not. I think that they get scared into these things. One, they're scared that they're going to lose their kid and that their kid is going to disown them. I also think they're scared that their kid's going to commit suicide because they're told that there is a really high suicide rate for transgender kids. What they don't tell you is that it doesn't exactly change a lot after the gender affirming care or anything else, and that those statistics that they use to scare you and say that they're going to commit suicide or that they're going to have suicidal thoughts are from online surveys, online self-reported surveys. So people who felt compelled to go there and take the survey, and there's no real, you don't know exactly who it is that's taking the survey in the first place. And that's where those statistics come from. Okay. So I think they get scared into it. So is there even actual real parental consent? Or are they just scared that their kid is going to have suicidal thoughts? And they think that, would you rather have a living boy or a dead girl? And those are the options that the parents are essentially given. The kids can't consent to it because kids don't think far enough ahead into the future. They don't understand these things. We don't let kids drink alcohol or do drugs or drive a car or do any number of things, go into an R-rated movie without their parent with them at a movie theater. There's many things that people have decided kids can't go do and kids can't do in our society because they're not good at making decisions. And I think this is one of the things. Chase is against the surgery aspect of this entire conversation because that's a permanent change to the kid's body. But there's also plenty of evidence to suggest that the puberty blockers and hormone replacement and all that are also permanent changes to the body that cannot be undone after these effects take hold. So it's less permanent. Like, you're not changing an actual, you're not cutting a physical thing off or adding a physical thing, whatever, but it still seems to be a permanent change. And so I see it to be child abuse. That's what I see. I really see it to be. I mean, you've got reports of like an entire class of students who are transgender. Guys, that's not scientific. That's not science. Statistically, there's absolutely no way that this entire class was transgender. It's a social contagion. That's what it is. You might say, well, but the doctors, they ask, they meet for like 15 minutes before they make this decision, right? So that means that the doctors know for sure, and the doctor talking to the parent, like, they're all making informed decisions, except for that there's 27 states that have bans on what's called conversion therapy. Now, I'm not saying that all 27 of those are like the one that was just done by executive order in Kentucky, or probably something like what California has. Some of them are actual bans on what we know and have known as conversion therapy. Almost sound like what we know, what we have known in terms of conversion therapy. And some of them are bans like Kentucky and California, where conversion therapy could be, oh, you're coming into my office and you're saying that you're transgender. Well, let's talk about that. Maybe, what if you're not? What if you're going through a thing right now? What if there's a way that we could meet once a week for a few months, and then you're going to go on living your life and have a great time? That could be conversion therapy. So when you say, well, the doctors meet with them and they say that this, and this. Okay, a bunch of them can't do anything else. Like I said, there's 27 states with bans on conversion therapy, although I'm unclear how many of them are like the one that we just discussed last month in Kentucky, or what states like California have. The doctors might actually be banned from any other option than, okay, yes, you're trans. Let's go about this. Let's do this. So the thing that I keep coming back on, when it comes to Chase, and maybe I'm going to ask him to come on the show before the election, and maybe I'll send him this clip and see if he wants to respond to it. That way I don't just blindside him with my ideas or whatever. We'll give him a chance to think about it. And I know that we have a lot of listeners who are going to vote for Chase. We have a lot of people that we talk to on X, social media platforms, that are going to vote for Chase. I get it. I do. We say very often that economics is the most important thing. Well, who's better on economics out of these options? Let's say that they all had an equal chance of winning. Whose economic policies do we align with the most? Clearly, it would be Chase. What about foreign policy? If all of them have the same chance of winning, whose foreign policy do we align with the most? That would be Chase, for sure. Gender affirming care, in my opinion, is child abuse, and allowing child abuse to happen is not libertarian to me. It's a violation of property rights, and I think children have to be protected because they can't make those decisions. And even if a parent decides to abuse their child, I don't think that's okay. And if a doctor who has almost no other option but to suggest that you abuse your child, says that you should abuse your child, that doesn't help me out either at all. And so that's a pretty big deal. And when it comes to voting for a libertarian, what we have to accept is that they're not going to win. We know that. I don't think Chase is going out there telling people yeah, this is the year. We're going to do it. We're going to win this election. My first day in the White House, here's what I'm going to do. I don't think that's really happening right now. And so what are you doing when you vote for a libertarian? I hate to use the term, but you're virtue signaling. It's a real virtue signal. Doesn't always have to be bad, but you're voting and you're saying, these are my principles. Not what the Republican stands for, not what the Democrat stands for. This is what we need to be moving towards. It is a vote for libertarianism because you know the candidate's not going to win, you're saying libertarianism is the way that we need to go. And if you have someone who doesn't properly represent libertarianism in your eyes, then your principled virtue signal vote is for something that goes against your principles and has no virtue. You know what I mean? It makes it pointless. You know, I would vote for someone if they represented my principles. Not just some of them, but if they represented my principles, or if they accurately represented libertarianism, in my view, I would vote for them in this election, because it would be a vote for the way that I think things need to go. But in the way I am voting in this election, even though I don't think I'm going to go to the ballot box, my vote is going to be a non-vote. And what I'm saying with my vote is that I need better candidates. Trump hasn't done anything to earn my vote. Kamala hasn't done anything to earn my vote. Definitely. And Chase has done some things, but he hasn't brought it into the positive column for me, because I need that principled virtue signal foundation for me to go vote for that libertarian. And what I worry about is, if I go vote for someone who I have this fundamental disagreement with, then I'm saying, okay, I like the economics, I like the foreign policy. Yeah, there's this one thing, but I really like these other things more. Those are way more important to me. And so I'll look past that one thing. The way that this is going to creep is, okay, well, how about in the next election cycle, we have good economics and good foreign policy, but we have 2 other really bad things. And then we have 3. Well, I think economics and foreign policy is more important, and so I'm still going to go vote. And so you're not really setting up the criteria. You're not really signaling to the party what is required to get your vote. They're saying, well, they'll put up with this. Let's see if they'll put up with this plus one more, and put up with this plus one more. And then eventually you're just voting for a Republican or for a Democrat. Yeah, I mean, like what Nate just said in the group, agreeing with everything is going to be really hard to do. And I get that. That's where I hate to say this again, but the Libertarian Party is not going to win. The Libertarian is not going to win. And of course, if everyone says that and say that, well, that means I'm not going to vote for this person because they're not perfect, well, then they'll, do they have any chance of winning if everyone says, well, they're not going to win, so I'm not going to go vote for them? Like, it kind of takes that idea that you could win for those people to go vote then. So the point that matters on that question is, like, how much alignment do you need? Agreeing on everything is really tough to do. I get that. What would matter there is whether or not the person had a chance to actually win the election. Because when I go vote, the only thing I'm voting for is my own ability to show what my principles are and to virtue signal to the other parties and to the electorate that this is the way to go. I'm not voting for someone who's actually going to take office and do anything. I'm voting for the statement, And when I'm voting for the statement and I'm voting for my principles, it's got to align with my principles. I would have more wiggle room if I thought the person could actually take office, change things, get us out of all the wars, do a bunch of really good economic policies, like if those things could actually happen. But since I'm only going there to show my principles on a piece of paper for the government, it's got to align with my principles. That's just where I am. I'm not saying I'm not trying to talk anyone out of voting for Chase. Like, if you plan on voting for Chase right now, good for you. I don't have any ill feelings towards you. I'm not sitting here thinking that you're wrong. This is how I deal with these things.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From FSN in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts for the latest world headlines. The former head of the fashion brand Abercrombie & Fitch stands accused of exploiting vulnerable young men eager for modelling contracts to traffic them. Mike Jeffries, who used to be the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and his British partner Matthew Smith, and a middleman, have been arrested on sex trafficking charges following an FBI investigation which was triggered by reports in the media. The trio are alleged to have spent millions of dollars on illegal trafficking activities. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken have discussed the need to capitalize on the killing of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. During Tuesday's meeting in Israel, Blinken also emphasized the need to get more aid into Gaza, according to the State Department. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The Israeli Prime Minister and the US's top diplomat discussed the need to secure the release of all the hostages and to end the conflict in Gaza in a way that provides lasting security for Israelis and Palestinians, according to the State Department. The statement said that the Secretary of State also pressed the need to ensure that aid reaches civilians in Gaza, something the US demanded of Israel earlier this month in a letter, warning that US military aid could be at risk. The State Department also said that Secretary Blinken pushed for a diplomatic resolution in Lebanon. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A new United Nations report released on Tuesday suggests that the impact of the year-long war in Gaza has set development back by about 69 years. The UN Development Programme, or UNDP, says the Palestinian economy may not be able to restore pre-war levels and advance forward even when the fighting ends. Jody Jacobs has more.
The report paints a grim picture of a post-war Palestine. The report estimates that poverty in Palestine will rise to 74% in 2024, affecting 4.1 million people. And that would include the 2.6 million people who are newly impoverished. It suggested that a comprehensive recovery and reconstruction plan, which will combine humanitarian aid with strategic investment and the lifting of economic restrictions, could help put the Palestinian economy back on track, but only by 2034. One of the authors says their projections confirm that a serious development crisis is unfolding, one that jeopardizes the future of Palestinians for generations to come. Jody Jacobs, New York.
The International Monetary Fund has raised its growth forecasts for the United States but cut them for China, warning of risks from conflicts, trade wars and high interest rates. Global GDP will remain at 3.2% this year and next. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Kamala did do an interview with Fox News. We can play a couple of these videos and then we gotta go. On the Chase thing one more time, in relation to the Trump video that this whole conversation started with, it is important to not take 3 seconds of someone saying something and decide that that is a new policy proposal or exactly what they mean or whatever it is. Like, I knew when I heard that 3 seconds, I had to do a little bit more digging on it. And so it's a bit much to say that Trump is in alignment with Chase or Trump's actually to the left of Chase or something like that from a 3-second video clip when he's actually put policies out there for like nationwide bans on gender affirming care. That's, I feel like we need more information before we make those kind of statements. This clip right here has to do with illegal immigration. There's a few here about illegal immigration. And then there is one here about, Biden. Is this the one about Yeah, it was about Biden. No, this is the direction of the country, and this one is about Biden. Let's hear about that one.
Fit. And he's unstable.
Unstable?
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable?
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
But
is,
you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact.
Yeah, so definitely dodging that question. Now, the question was one of those really funny leading questions that boxes you into admitting to something. I was telling the group beforehand. It's the question, when did you stop beating your wife? Well, if you say years ago, well, then you just admitted to beating your wife. When did you notice that Biden's mental faculties were diminished? Well, you can't. You see she's thinking there for a minute because she can't answer it, and she can't give any answer really without admitting that she noticed that Biden's mental faculties were diminished. And so instead she pivots to Donald Trump and talking about former security advisors and people that say that he's unstable and should never be the president again. Honestly, some of those things I take as a reason to vote for Trump. Like John Bolton really doesn't think, Trump, I guess, should be the president anymore. Ooh, that's pretty bad. Yeah, it is a good question. It is a valid question. Like what Josh said in the group, the guy's still the president of the United States, and he went through the primary process, and he got most of the votes from Democrats, and then they took him out and put Kamala in, all within a span of a couple days. And so I think, hey, did you know that this was the case? Well, they can't even admit that that's why he dropped out, because then they'd have to have the question about, well, why is he still the president? So they just can't admit it, even though they really admitted it by forcing him to drop out of the race and put her in there because they thought she'd have a better shot. She is doing better in most of the polls against Trump than Biden was, but she still seems pretty connected to Biden, by way of being his vice president this whole time. This is a couple minutes. They're asking about the country thinks we're moving in the wrong direction. Let's see what her answers are on that. She, of course, just wants to talk about Trump more. That's it. She just wants to talk about Trump.
Rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But
people
you're the
have
lever
become.
of power.
But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full time demeaning and engaging in personal grievances and it being about him instead of the American people. People are tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know.
So I'm really glad he asked that question because I'd seen a shorter clip of this, and it's what I wanted to say afterwards. She talks about, well, he's been running for president. You know, this started back in 2015. So we've had Trump in the public eye for almost a decade now, and people are exhausted and they're sick of this. And in some way, I agree with that. Like I'm exhausted. I am looking forward to the time in my life where we don't talk about Trump anymore. I am personally looking forward to that. Now, most of that is because most of the people on the left have become so gosh darn annoying about it and so unhinged about it. And so I'm looking forward to that time when we don't just have to talk about Trump all the time. I'm sure people in Congress are too. I mean, you see some of these debates, like I saw Ted Cruz debating, and they're talking about Trump, you know, and they're talking about January 6th. And, you know, the clip going around of his opponent, I can't remember his name right now, has to do with January 6th. And I'm sure they are a little bit exhausted about this, you know, but he did a good job asking the follow-up question, like, if people are so exhausted, if they're so sick of this, like, why does half of the country support this guy? And the answer is, like, all the people that she knows are exhausted by it. The Democrats are exhausted by it. Some of the Republicans are. A lot of the Republicans are just exhausted because he's made everyone go so freaking crazy. Now, I'm a little exhausted with both of them because he's also turned some people on the right into cult members, you know, but that's really what she's talking about. But half the country still supports this guy. There's still a chance he's going to win. So clearly it's not as crazy, or people aren't as exhausted or as sick of it as what she says it is. And when you got almost 80% of the country saying that we're on the wrong track, when Biden has been in office for 3.5 years, almost 4 now, and is still saying almost 80% of the people are saying we're on the wrong track. And when she's asked about her differences with Biden, she can't name a single thing that she would have done differently, which is important. It seems important to me. But I don't know. I think she filibustered quite a lot in this interview. I've seen several clips, and you know that you've got, like, I think it was 29 minutes is what they were supposed to do. And there's a certain amount you just talk. You can just talk. Like, we're at 37 minutes and 30 seconds on this episode right now. And I could literally just filibuster to the 40-minute mark if I want to. And then you're out of time. Like, you told them that you had that much time to talk to them, and you never truly answer any questions at all. You can argue back and forth and all that, and you can just filibuster the entire interview. And then the next day you say, well, I did an interview on Fox News. I did a tough interview, you know. Here's these clips going around posted by Kamala HQ saying that I just won the election. He asked a lot of really good stuff about immigration, which we won't go into. We've talked plenty about that. But there were a few good clips from the immigration thing. And she keeps saying that we need immigration reform. We have to fix our broken system. That's really where they've landed on the immigration thing. It's not so much securing the border and stopping the flow of illegal immigration. They're really moving away from that conversation when we talk about immigration. What she is now putting all of the emphasis on is that we need to change our immigration system. That is the fix for this entire thing. She's partially right about that, which is why she's saying it. A lot of people agree that we need to fix our immigration. Like, as I was saying that, I was thinking we do need to fix our immigration system. It does take a long time to come here. It's very difficult. It's almost like it's ran by the government. And we do need to fix the immigration system. Even Trump said, I want a lot of people to come here. I just want them to come here legally. He said that in the interview that we pulled the other clip from, the gender affirming care thing. He said that at the end of it. He wants a lot of people to come here. He just wants them to come here legally. And so now she's pivoted to that. But they're ignoring the fact that they rescinded a bunch of Trump's executive orders. Like, Trump did stop much of the flow of illegal immigration, and he didn't do it with Congress. He did it with executive orders, and they got rid of a bunch of the executive orders, and then they didn't get any legislation to fix our broken immigration system, and so they just left it wide open for 3.5 years, until they saw that it was a major election talking point, and that it's something that a lot of people cared about. And early on this year, they put on some new executive orders, some of the things that Trump did, no doubt, to get the flow back down to a more reasonable low level. They could have done that the entire time. Instead of waiting for the immigration reform that fully passed Congress and got signed by the president, and then getting rid of some of Trump's executive orders, they instead got rid of them. The flow went crazy, and then Congress never fully signed and sent anything to the president's desk, and so the problem never got solved, and they just ignored it. Like I said, until they saw that it was something people cared a lot about in this election. That's the only reason they're doing anything about it right now, because for some reason they don't seem to care very much. Watch the clips from the interview if you want. It's my least favorite time of the year to talk about things. It's my least favorite time of the every 4 years to talk about things on this show. As I said yesterday, almost nothing is real that we're hearing right now. And the things that we cover, it's some of the beliefs of the candidates. Sure, some of them. A lot of the things are just things that they focus group, like the things that Kamala's putting down as plans. Congress would have to pass those things for her to sign, and then they would have to look exactly like what she's talking about right now. And that's not going to happen. Most of the things aren't going to happen at all. It's just a lot of talking, trying to win the last independent voter that you have, that last undecided voter, and get them to come to the ballot box and vote for you. And so there's nothing of any real substance to talk about right now. And I really hate that. Okay. So we are going to switch over now to Dumb Bleep of the Week. Unfortunately, no Charlie on today's Dumb Bleep of the Week, but of course we were hanging out with the Fed Haters Club, who joined up by going to joingml.com. It's as little as $7 a month. Check it out if you are a Fed hater, fellow Fed hater, like everyone else who's in the group. I don't think there's any Feds in the group, but of course it's always pretty tough to tell. We've asked them, and I think they have to tell us if they're Feds. That's not true, actually, but we have asked them. So anyway, go to the Fed Haters Club. That way you can throw in submissions for Dumb Bleep of the Week, and then possibly win Dumb Bleep of the Week, and then move on to Dumb Bleep of the Year, and you'll get a trophy for your submission at the end of the year if your submission wins Dumb Bleep of the Year. It's as simple as that. We also send the trophy to whoever the dumbest person is, letting them know, and then they can put that up on their mantle, and they will be so proud of it. Of course, we have a daily podcast called Good Morning Liberty that you guys should be listening to every single day of the week, 1,387 episodes strong, so make sure you go do that. It is Dumb Bleep of the Week. That is the day of the week where we finally get to make fun of all of the dumb things that have been going on over the last week. And then the live group, the Fed Haters Club, they vote on which one is the dumbest, and that one moves on to Dumb Bleep of the Year, which we will do coming up. Not too far away, coming up in December. We're going to do something a little weird here, which is start with one it's not number one, but I wanted to make sure that we had time, that we took as much time as we needed to play this clip. And there's this thing called the Al Smith dinner. It's a Catholic charity dinner thing, and people get there and they make jokes and make fun of each other and make fun of themselves. It's always nice to see people kind of let their guard down and kind of take the mask off and be a real person, and not so much what you see on the campaign trail all the time. And Kamala Harris decided not to go. I think it really shows you that she has to keep the mask on. She can't switch out of the fake campaign mode. And also, if she goes there and she tries to be funny and essentially do a stand-up routine in front of a bunch of people where the guy you're running against is actually pretty funny and is going to destroy you, I think that's probably why she decided not to go. She thought that it would really just make her look really bad. But she decided to make herself look really bad anyway by remoting in with this skit to play during the event. I just want to make sure that we have time to talk about it. It's very, very weird to me because she's doing fine with the ladies. Like, this is a female-focused presidential election. She's doing terrible with men. And still, to do this skit, which is just, I'm just going to play it. It's just, I'm sorry. We probably won't make it through the whole thing, but let's just try.
The Al Smith dinner provides a rare opportunity to set aside partisanship.
Cool. Oh, sorry.
Hey, what's going on? Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine Gallagher. Mary Catherine Gallagher. It's so nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Mary Catherine. Right now I'm trying to record my speech for tonight's dinner.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just want to say that I'm Catholic, and tonight is one of the biggest dinners next to the Last Supper.
It is a very important dinner, and it's an important tradition that I'm so proud to be a part of.
Sometimes when I get nervous, I stick my fingers under my arms and I simmer them like that. But that's gross.
So tell me something. I'm giving a speech. Do you have some thoughts about what I might say tonight?
My feelings about what you should say tonight would be best expressed in a monologue from one of my favorite made-for-TV series.
Okay, let's hear it.
Don't you see, man? We need a woman to represent us. A woman brings more heart, more compassion. And think how smart she must be to become a top contender in a field dominated by men. It's time for a woman, bro. And with this woman, we can fly.
What series was that from?
Oh, that's from House of Dragons, now streaming on HBO Max.
Is there anything that you think that maybe I shouldn't bring up tonight?
Well, don't lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness to thy neighbor.
Indeed, especially thy neighbor's election results.
Just so you know, there will be a fact checker there tonight.
Oh, that's great. Who?
Jesus. And maybe don't say anything negative about Catholics.
I would never do that, no matter where I was. That would be like criticizing Detroit in Detroit.
Does it bother you that Trump guy insults you all the time? Because it really bothers my friends and me.
Oh, Mary Catherine, it's very important to always remember you should never let anyone tell you who you are. You tell them who you are.
Haters gonna hate. Shake it off.
Shake it off.
Shake it off.
Shake it off. Good for you, Mary Catherine.
This is so cringy and awful and weird, terrible. And what Trump did last night, I'll just tell you, it was amazing. I'm sure you've seen the clips going around online. So good. I don't know what this is. It's not funny. It plays to a very particular audience who would have had to have seen the Superstar movie or the skits on SNL. Just not. It's not it at all. Let's compare that to some of what Trump did last night. And I'll play you that top 5 video that's been going around all over the place from Colin Rugg, I guess, Colin Rugg. It was really good. And actually, I heard a lot of other really good jokes that didn't make it in this top 5. This actually wouldn't have been my top 5. But this is a good example. This is the difference here. And this is probably why she didn't go to the dinner.
I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods. But then I met Tim Walz. Well, I'd better wrap up because Mayor Adams told me earlier that I needed to make this one very quick, especially the city has reserved this room for a large group of illegal aliens coming in from Texas. There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me. A major issue in this race is child care, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep him away. That's a nasty one. Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? He looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
It's really good. I mean, Chuck Schumer sitting right next to him. Chuck Schumer's right next to the podium, and he's like patting Chuck on the back. It was really good. And for some reason, Kamala skipped it, and I think she skipped it because it would have been very different and not funny whatsoever. There's one thing about things that are funny, like really good comedy. There's a reason that like left-wing comedians just can't be as funny, and it's because there has to be a little bit of truth behind comedy, in my opinion, for it to be really funny. And they don't have a whole lot of that. There's not much. That wasn't Dumb Bleep number one. I just wanted to make sure we covered that as the first thing that we covered today. The actual first Dumb Bleep number one is something that we just talked about day before yesterday. Sorry, we're getting the serious stuff that's not funny right now. We'll talk about some more funny stuff here in a bit. Let me breeze by Dumb Bleep number one. It's the stealth edit by the FBI with the violent crime stats. We all went through a period of time where we were crazy for thinking that crime had actually gone up, but according to the FBI, the crime had gone down by 2.1%. Instead, we found out that they had quietly revised those numbers, even finding an extra 1,700 murders somewhere, and that crime had actually gone up by 4.5%. But I believe Trump, I just saw in that Bloomberg interview that we actually talked about yesterday, was fact-checked on the crime stats again just yesterday, where the guy asking him the questions was like, yeah, but you know the crime's actually gone down during this time. So we didn't get the full information out there. Pretty crazy. And in fact, one thing that people wouldn't like you to know is that although recent attention is focused on the decline in murder rates, even with the revised numbers, the 16.2% drop from 2020 to 2023 still leaves murder rates 9.6% higher than a pre-COVID levels. It's pretty crazy stuff. But of course, we did not get a big fanfare. They didn't have a press conference. They just tried to go in and add into the numbers, and people actually had to go in and do the math and find out that the numbers had actually gone up, not down. And people are still going to fact check on this. They're still going to say that it went down, and people are still just not going to know. Okay. But right now, we should definitely trust the 2023 numbers. We know that.
The ultimate bargain is free. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Before you can fully type the Buy Nothing Project, Google will finish it for you. It's that popular now. Their mission statement is buy less, share more. It makes us all richer and our planet cleaner. You can give away or ask for whatever you want free. Appliances, workout gear, concert and event and travel tickets, and intangibles. Offer the world your photo or poem or short story. Offer people near you that stack of bricks or fish tank you want to get rid of. Check it out at buynothingproject.org and the Buy Nothing app for Apple and Android devices. And poke around Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
The latest episode of Free Talk Live continues with Hour 3 up next after the news here at listen.freetalklive.com.
From FSN in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts for the latest world headlines. The former head of the fashion brand Abercrombie & Fitch stands accused of exploiting vulnerable young men eager for modeling contracts to traffic them. Mike Jeffries, who used to be the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and his British partner Matthew Smith, and a middleman, have been arrested on sex trafficking charges following an FBI investigation which was triggered by reports in the media. The trio are alleged to have spent millions of dollars on illegal trafficking activities. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken have discussed the need to capitalize on the killing of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. During Tuesday's meeting in Israel, Blinken also emphasized the need to get more aid into Gaza, according to the State Department. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The Israeli Prime Minister and the US's top diplomat discussed the need to secure the release of all the hostages and to end the conflict in Gaza in a way that provides lasting security for Israelis and Palestinians, according to the State Department. The statement said that the Secretary of State also pressed the need to ensure that aid reaches civilians in Gaza, something the US demanded of Israel earlier this month in a letter, warning that US military aid could be at risk. The State Department also said that Secretary Blinken pushed for a diplomatic resolution in Lebanon. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A new United Nations report released on Tuesday suggests that the impact of the year-long war in Gaza has set development back by about 69 years. The UN Development Programme, or UNDP, says the Palestinian economy may not be able to restore pre-war levels and advance forward even when the fighting ends. Jody Jacobs has more.
The report paints a grim picture of a post-war Palestine. The report estimates that poverty in Palestine will rise to 74% in 2024, affecting 4.1 million people. And that would include the 2.6 million people who are newly impoverished. It suggested that a comprehensive recovery and reconstruction plan, which will combine humanitarian aid with strategic investment and the lifting of economic restrictions, could help put the Palestinian economy back on track, but only by 2034. One of the authors says their projections confirm that a serious development crisis is unfolding, one that jeopardizes the future of Palestinians for generations to come. Jody Jacobs, New York.
The International Monetary Fund has raised its growth forecasts for the United States but cut them for China, warning of risks from conflicts, trade wars and high interest rates. Global GDP will remain at 3.2% this year and next. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at Benjamin Netanyahu's possible strategy now in Lebanon. Following the killing of Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah and the Israeli killing in Gaza last week of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, the Americans are hoping that the Israeli leader might be persuaded back onto the diplomatic track. But Prime Minister Netanyahu insists his war will continue. Mark Lyle Grant is Britain's former national security advisor and the UK's former permanent representative at the United Nations.
Lebanon, unfortunately, is one of those countries where the state armed forces are not as strong as independent militias. Hezbollah's army is undoubtedly more powerful than the Lebanese armed forces. The way that Netanyahu is talking, he has his enemies both in Hezbollah, in Hamas, in Iran to some extent, the Houthis in Yemen, and on the back foot at the moment. And I don't think he is minded to ease up that military pressure on Israel's enemies at a time when they are on the ground, as it were, and allow for some sort of ceasefire which would give them some respite, potentially to rebuild their military strength. So I think this conflict will continue for some time to go.
And in recent days, Israel has broadened its targets, going after financial institutions in Lebanon, believed essentially to serve as Hezbollah's banks. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And a reminder now of the hour's top story. The former head of the fashion brand Abercrombie & Fitch stands accused of exploiting vulnerable young men eager for modelling contracts to traffic them. Mike Jeffries, who used to be the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and his British partner Matthew Smith, and a middleman, have been arrested on sex trafficking charges following an FBI investigation which was triggered by reports in the media. And that's the latest world news from Feature Story News. I'm Nina Maria Potts reporting.
The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On July 21st, 2007, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the final installment in the widely popular Harry Potter series, was released, as excited fans all over the world eagerly flipped to the book's final pages to find out if Harry and Lord Voldemort finally
Author J.K. Rowling had already succeeded in creating one of the most popular literary franchises of all time. And of course, much of that success was owed to the expertly crafted sexual tension that steadily built up between the series' protagonist, schoolboy wizard Harry Potter, and the Dark Lord Voldemort. Everyone in the country wanted to know whether or not they would and if they did how many times would they and who would be who.
And that was what happened this week in history. In the words of Mother Teresa, if there is one lesson to learn from the past, it's that no matter what you do, there will always be a bunch more crippled dying kids.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Hey, what's up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live network. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash with fees of less than a penny per transaction. Dash is made for spending. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies, and they are widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. Well, right now, we have already gotten started with Dumb Bleep of the Week. That's everyone's favorite episode of the week on our podcast that we do every single day of the week called Good Morning Liberty. Find us on your favorite podcast app. Watch on Spotify or YouTube or Rumble or Odyssey, wherever you watch your videos. And, of course, you can go to joingml.com to join the Fed Haters Club and throw in submissions for Dumb Bleep of the Week. If your submission wins, you get thrown into Dumb Bleep of the Year. And if you win Dumb Bleep of the Year, you get a trophy. And you will be so proud about it. You'll show your parents, and they will finally be proud of you, and you can show your children, and they will know that you had at least one accomplishment, and that is throwing in the submission for the dumbest thing that happened in Year of Our Lord 2024. 1,387 episodes so far on Good Morning Liberty, so go find it on your favorite podcast app. I think we're just now getting to number 2, I think. Let me check and see here. Dumb Bleep number 2, get back to Trump here for a minute. There was this thing that happened this week where Trump was doing a town hall in Pennsylvania, and there was kind of this awkward thing that happened. In the final half hour of the event, was them playing music and Trump awkwardly dancing on stage. And I saw the reports of this because my feed is basically just left-wing people, because those are the people I interact with, so I can bring it to the show to talk about things. So that's like my entire news feed. So Kamala HQ says Trump appears lost, confused, and frozen on stage as multiple songs play for 30 plus minutes and the crowd pours out of the venue early. Tim Walz, he was given a speech the next day, said if this was your grandfather, you'd take the keys away. But Trump's running for president of the United States. What happens if he shuts down like he did last night in the Situation Room? Let's see. MSNBC, Donald Trump's town hall in Pennsylvania took an odd turn after 2 rally goers had medical issues halting the program. Okay, so we start to get a little bit of the information added in here. Trump decided to stop the town hall questions and told the staff to just play music from his personal playlist. He proceeded to stay on stage listening and dancing for 39 minutes. I mean, it was weird. It's not particularly a great dancer or anything. He's kind of doing his Trump moves and stuff like that. That's fine. But it goes on. More and more people online. I mean, you're talking massive posts here. I'll tell you how many when you add them all together. Sources close to the Trump campaign reveal a state of panic post-Pennsylvania town hall. Insiders are scrambling with whispers of Trump's mental capacity in question. Campaign insiders, once stalwart, now whisper worries if he can last the next 21 days. That sounds very true. That thing Trump did last night is not explainable, and it is not small. It shows that he's increasingly detached from reality. Everyone knows if Biden or Harris did that, it would be media mayhem. He's not okay, and you can't ignore it anymore. This person says, America, please, I'm begging you, we cannot do this again. We can't endure this man's psychosis. He is irredeemably unwell, and that's him on stage. There we go. Once again, Aaron Rupar talking about the same situation. Tristan Snell saying that he abruptly stopped the town hall. Why isn't mainstream media calling on him to drop out of the race? The Washington Post says Trump sways and bops to music for 39 minutes in bizarre town hall episode. Let's see. I don't recognize what media outlet this is from. Trump breaks down on stage. Let's see. At a campaign event last night, Trump got bored and weirdness ensued. Okay, so that's a lot of the media reports and people online. And I'll tell you the main reason I really care about this is because there was an obvious reason that this situation happened. There was a medical event that took several minutes where the doctors had to go tend to someone in the crowd. Apparently it was very hot in there. And then they got that person fixed up and they went on with the town hall. And then another medical event happened with another person. And the doctors had to go take care of that person. And it chewed up like 20 minutes of the thing. And people started singing during the event, and then people were shouting random campaign slogans and things like Joe and the Ho gotta go, stuff like that. And Trump decided to turn some music on while the doctors were helping this person. Now, you got someone who's having a medical emergency and there are doctors tending to them. What do you turn on? What do you play at that point? I mean, I don't know if throwing on like your favorite patriotic country music at that time is great. He decided to play some opera songs, like Ave Maria got played several times. Trump is a big fan of opera. If you don't know that, he's a big fan of opera. So they play Ave Maria while medical personnel are attending to one of the people that are at the rally or that are at the town hall, and basically so much time got chewed up that at the end of it, he was like, well, let's just play some music and sit here and hang out. And that's what they did for the last half hour. It was an easily explainable event that happened, although it's not normal for someone to stay on stage for half an hour doing a weird dance there at the end. But in no way, shape, or form did anyone ever think that he had frozen or that he was unwell, or that he decided he couldn't answer questions anymore because his brain shut off or something like that. That was all made up. And the reason I wanted to talk about it was because the post I just read to you got a combined 50 million views just on X. 50 million views just on X. And they were all lying. But you know, Trump is the one that spreads misinformation online, and the people on the right are the one that spread misinformation, and they're talking about hurricanes and FEMA's bad response and stuff like that. It is all very hypocritical, And it was crazy to see the post blow up that much. It took up like an entire night of my X surfing that I do at night before I go to bed. Just people talking about this incident. And it was fake. Like there was clearly a reason that it happened. And they just ignored that reason. Luckily, some community notes are what pointed me in the proper direction for what actually happened. I saw this over last weekend. JD Vance talking to this journalist. And this one came from the live group. Thanks for sending that in. And she basically does if you deport people, then who's going to build our houses thing? Like, these are the only people that do this work. How are we going to have people building homes and stuff like that? I'm going to show you JD Vance's response. And then I actually did go and dig and get the numbers on this. They sort of do this thing where, all the immigrants, they're just doing these manual labor jobs. How are we going to have any of these? How are we going to have stuff if we don't have people from other countries building our things? And there are, like Clint Russell points out, there's 5 million American men that work in construction. In fact, you might think that it's mostly immigrants or mostly people who are Hispanic. Then you have to look at native born or foreign born. It's still mostly native born white men who do construction. And so I want to listen to a little bit of that real quick.
The reason that there is a housing crisis is that not enough houses have been built.
And that we have 25 million people who shouldn't be here.
Well, I mean, this is the thing.
I think it's both.
I know you do. I don't think that many people who look into this agree with you, but about a third of the construction workforce in this country is Hispanic. Of those, a large portion are undocumented. So how do you propose to build all the housing necessary that we need in this country by removing all the people who are working in construction?
Well, I think it's a fair question because we know that back in the 1960s when we had very low levels of illegal immigration, Americans didn't buy houses, didn't build houses. But of course they did. And I'm being sarcastic, of course, in service of a point, Lulu, the assumption that because a large number of home builders now are using undocumented labor, that's the only way to build homes. I think, again,
the country is much bigger.
The
need is much bigger. I mean, I'm not arguing in favor of illegal immigration. I'm asking how you would deal with the knock-on effect of your proposal to remove millions of people who work in a critical part of the economy.
Well, I think that what you would do is you would take, let's say, for example, the 7 million prime age men who have dropped out of the labor force, and you have a smaller number of women, but still millions of women prime age who have dropped out of the labor force. You absolutely could re-engage folks into the American labor market. This is, I think,
to work in construction?
Of course you could.
I mean, the unemployment rate is 4.1%. Most people
unemployment rate, Lulu, this is important.
But most people who don't work can't work in the regular economy. They're in the military, they're parents, they're sick, they're old. They might not want to work in construction.
The unemployment rate does not count labor force participation dropouts. And again, this is one of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society is it gets us in a mindset of saying we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million, just men, not even women, just men who have completely dropped out of the labor force. People say, well, Americans won't do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs for below the table wages. They won't do those jobs for non-living wages, but people will do those jobs. They will just do those jobs at certain wages. And think about this from the perspective of an American company, okay?
So I think you did a good job answering this question. I really want to take the opportunity, because I thought it was interesting. I hadn't looked into it before, to look at some of the actual stats on this. So these stats were actually pretty easy to find. I mean, like the first link I clicked on from the Bureau of Labor showed me all of these statistics. So let's see. Let me see. Construction would be 60% non-Hispanic white, okay, and about 30% Hispanic, and then you got like 5% black, 2% Asian, something like that. First off, just some random information for you. Let's all learn this. Let's all learn this together right now. Now, the distribution of people that are Hispanic doing this work has gone up from 20% to 30%, and it's gone down from 71% down to 60% for people who are white, but still predominantly people who are white working in these jobs. Now, if you do break it down to the people who are actually doing the construction itself, the actual construction itself, you would see that is closer to being more Hispanic people and not white people that are doing the actual construction. So that's a little bit different. That's a little different. You're talking about the people who go and do the work. And listen, I've worked in this industry for a long time. I spent a long time doing these kind of jobs, and this is just anecdotal evidence. But yeah, like everyone I see doing this work is Hispanic. I just got a new roof put on my house on Tuesday, and there was a crew of 9 people that came out, and they were all Hispanic. That doesn't mean that all the crews are Hispanic or whatever. But yeah, anecdotal evidence. I could tell you that's potentially a thing. But I think he points out that we used to have houses that were built, and also don't like people writing off the idea that if there's 20 million people here illegally that shouldn't be here. Now, I want them to be able to come here easily. But if there's that many people, and let's say you need half that many living spaces for them to live in, or even a third as many, I mean, that's millions of homes that would be available. It's millions of people bidding for homes that wouldn't otherwise be bidding for the homes. And the Fed themselves have actually brought this up before in some of their reports. I brought in all the information on this, like total construction, non-Hispanic, white, around 60%. Construction laborers is about 50-50 white and Hispanic. And you can go back and look at these screenshots if you would like to. The percentage of people who are Hispanic doing the work that are foreign born is like 65% to 35% native born. But about 25% of the entire construction industry are foreign born versus 75% are native born. All these stats are available. You can check them out. I'll put a link in the show notes for you. That's Dumb Bleep number 3. Let's go to Dumb Bleep number 4. Some people might not agree with this and whatever, but there's a meme. This one came from the group as well. Thanks for that, whoever put that in. The meme says it's not white versus black, straight versus gay, rich versus poor, man versus woman. It's state versus you. And if you don't believe that, then they're beating you. I totally agree with this meme. That's a really good meme. Very accurate. Very true. The caption on it is, "That's why Trump is the only option." Now, if you look at this specific election cycle, maybe you don't like Chase Oliver, and so you're not going to be able to vote for him. But I don't want to sit here and pretend that a Republican getting in office or Trump getting in office is going to change the dynamic of the state versus you. And this is a libertarian podcast. Basically, any Republican or Democrat that gets in these days is still going to be state versus you. Libertarianism is an option, and I think a lot of people like Elon Musk put a bullseye on this. That's why Trump is the only option. Maybe he'll get in there and he'll be different this time. Maybe he'll pick the right people to run all of his, all the cabinet positions and all that. Maybe he'll do something about the budget or the deficit or whatever, although I haven't heard anyone talk about spending less money. And as long as they keep spending more money, that means they're going to keep taking more money from you, which is like the way that the state really gets you. Regardless of who is in there, they're going to take the product of your labor, the fruits of your labor, and they're going to spend it on things that you don't want to spend it on yourself. So I'm not going to pretend like all of a sudden this dynamic is going to change and that Trump is the only person who's going to make it where it's no longer the state versus you. I don't think that's the situation that we're living in. Elon Musk is getting really close. He's getting really close. Eventually, I think he'll get there. Maybe libertarianism is the right option. Maybe Republicans and Democrats are always increasing the power of the state. Maybe that's happening. Maybe they always increase the federal budget, and then the deficits, and then the debt, which comes from you, no matter what they do. If they borrow it, they print it, or they tax it, it comes from you. All right? Sometimes it's okay to admit that we don't have any good options, which is what I've admitted this year. I don't see any really good options. I don't see any good outcome of this election. I want Kamala Harris to lose more than I want Trump to lose. I can tell you that, which means I would prefer to see Trump win, but I'm not happy with a Trump win. I don't see a lot of good things happening after Trump wins. It might actually set us back some because it's going to make the left go absolutely insane. So I'm not going to put my blinders on and pretend like this is going to fix things. There's a chance that it could make things worse, actually. But I really don't want to see the left win. And I really want to watch them freak out when they lose. And right now, that emotional heartstring that's getting pulled right now, where I want to see them freak out over a loss, makes it to where I would prefer to see Trump win over Kamala. But no, I'm not voting for Trump. I'm just saying who I would rather see win the election. You don't have to vote. And that's what I've realized really this year. You don't have to. And that can be a vote too. Another video for Dumb Bleep number 5. Let's look at this one. This is a guy destroying this privileged socialist. This one came from the group as well. Thank you for sending that in. Let me find this. This guy's maybe a little bit mean. I don't know. I mean, it's not exactly how I would handle it if I were talking to this person. I sort of felt bad for her and expected her to start crying. But let's listen to this exchange. And these really are some of the people that you're dealing with online sometimes, these socialists that you're dealing with online that really have no care in the world and just want to make themselves feel better by supporting something like socialism. But let's listen to this exchange. Yes, there's volume on this. Here we go.
Yeah, reality sucks. Capitalism is bad. I don't like it.
Yeah, really easy for someone to say that grew up in a really nice house in one of the best school districts in Texas.
I know, but it's
who has the rent paid for, that is able to go to Europe and on a whim with their sister, who's able to do girl math, who's able to be fun employed. Yeah, it's easy to say that the system's bad when you're doing that because you've never had to work for it. You never got to actually see what happens when you put in the work and get benefits and actually have a little bit of responsibility and actually build something or do anything. You've grew up in privilege beyond privilege beyond privilege beyond privilege. It's only the people who speak like you that grew up in a world where you've never had to do a single thing in your life. So I don't want to hear about that. What a joke.
I'm sorry. I just wish everybody had but yeah, like you were saying, that
I wish a lot of things. Wishing doesn't get people places. You try to create the best systems possible. This doesn't matter. Oh my.
If it's the best system possible, then why are there people
I'm not saying this is shut the f up. I'm not saying this is the best system possible. I'm saying we don't do the I wish this is how it all is. Yeah. You try to create the best systems possible to give people the opportunities to live the best lives. I'm not saying everything's perfect. I'm not saying this is the best system possible. I don't know. Everything's a hypothesis.
Yeah.
But for you to say that is disgusting.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm a real hypocrite for that. But the people who you should be going after are the people in the top something percent that hoard all the world's wealth. Go after those people. Those people need to be taxed. And that money
taxed to the max.
Yeah.
What does that even look like to you? You probably don't even know what that looks like. What does that look like? How do you tax them to the max?
I'm not sure. I have somebody else.
Oh, interesting. This person's voting.
Yes, I am. And I already know who I'm voting for.
And you literally can't describe a tax.
Yeah, this person is voting. Should everyone be able to vote? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Go find us on Twitter/X. Our handle is Good AM Liberty because Good Morning Liberty was too long and GML was too short. For some reason, I don't think it's really too short. I think they're just screwing with us because AOC has AOC, I don't know. Anyway, GML was too short. Good AM Liberty. Should everyone be able to vote? I know that's a controversial question, but I just want to know what you guys think. Let me know. Say, hey, I heard you on Free Talk Live, and this is what I think about everyone being allowed to vote. We'll be right back with more Dumb Bleep of the Week.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
From FSN in Washington, I'm Nina Maria Potts with the latest world headlines. The former head of the fashion brand Abercrombie & Fitch stands accused of exploiting vulnerable young men eager for modeling contracts to traffic them. Mike Jeffries, who used to be the CEO of Abercrombie & Fitch, and his British partner Matthew Smith, and a middleman, have been arrested on sex trafficking charges following an FBI investigation which was triggered by reports in the media. The trio are alleged to have spent millions of dollars on illegal trafficking activities. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken have discussed the need to capitalize on the killing of the Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. During Tuesday's meeting in Israel, Blinken also emphasized the need to get more aid into Gaza, according to the State Department. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The Israeli Prime Minister and the US's top diplomat discussed the need to secure the release of all the hostages and to end the conflict in Gaza in a way that provides lasting security for Israelis and Palestinians, according to the State Department. The statement said that the Secretary of State also pressed the need to ensure that aid reaches civilians in Gaza, something the US demanded of Israel earlier this month in a letter, warning that US military aid could be at risk. The State Department also said that Secretary Blinken pushed for a diplomatic resolution in Lebanon. Kate Fisher, Washington.
A new United Nations report released on Tuesday suggests that the impact of the year-long war in Gaza has set development back by about 69 years. The UN Development Programme, or UNDP, says the Palestinian economy may not be able to restore pre-war levels and advance forward even when the fighting ends. Jody Jacobs has more.
The report paints a grim picture of a post-war Palestine. The report estimates that poverty in Palestine will rise to 74% in 2024, affecting 4.1 million people. And that would include the 2.6 million people who are newly impoverished. It suggested that a comprehensive recovery and reconstruction plan, which will combine humanitarian aid with strategic investment and the lifting of economic restrictions, could help put the Palestinian economy back on track, but only by 2034. One of the authors says their projections confirm that a serious development crisis is unfolding, one that jeopardizes the future of Palestinians for generations to come. Jody Jacobs, New York.
The International Monetary Fund has raised its growth forecasts for the United States but cut them for China, warning of risks from conflicts, trade wars and high interest rates. Global GDP will remain at 3.2% this year and next. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Liberty at Night with Nate and Charlie on the Free Talk Live Network, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Remember, the 5th of November. You should remember that if you're going to go vote. It's kind of cool that it's on the 5th of November this year. But anyway, remember to find our podcast, Good Morning Liberty, on your favorite podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating and review. Those are super important to the algorithms for suggesting us to other people. That's a Good Morning Liberty, even though right now we go by Liberty at Night. We thought Good Night Liberty might sound too sad, even though it's probably way more accurate. But anyway, it's Liberty at Night. Good Morning Liberty every single day of the week. Find us on your favorite podcast app. Watch on Spotify, watch on YouTube, Rumble, or Odyssey as well. We are in the middle of Dumb Bleep of the Week. And before we took that short break, we were listening to this guy just tear apart this entitled, privileged socialist chick who has no idea what the heck she was talking about. And so we're going to get right back into that conversation. She said a few things there that I was writing down during the video. First off, I wish we could do this. I think there's other people throughout history who wished they could do these things too. Not to always jump to those examples, but they didn't turn out very well. She says that this is the best system possible, and he kind of cuts her off. But if this is the best system possible, then why do we have? She was going to say, why do we have these people in the top, whatever, that have all this wealth and the people at the bottom, that are suffering. That still doesn't mean that it's not the best system possible. That means that you don't like it. That means that you could be envious or that you could feel like that's unfair, but it doesn't mean that it's not the best system possible. It probably is the best system possible. What we have right now is not the best system possible because a lot of it's crony capitalism / fascism, because we have the government running private. Then you can still own things privately, but the government tells you what to do. And so it's not the best it could possibly be. A lot of times that's why a bunch of people have so much wealth on the top. They get it through government benefits of some sort, or government granted monopolies of some sort. She talks about wealth hoarding. We have all these people that are just hoarding all this wealth. It means that you have no understanding of the way that money or wealth works. Do they have it in a safe at their house? Do they have it under their mattress? Or do they have it in the bank, where the banks then make that available for other people to get things that they don't have the money for? So they can go to the banks and use our beautiful fractional reserve banking system and lend that money out to a bunch of people. Is that money available for investments, so you can invest in other companies and other businesses that are going to hire workers, and they can save and work their way up? Like, just absolutely. And then she said they should be taxed to the max. I had no idea what that looks like at all, how it would even work. How would you tax these people's wealth? There is no way to actually do it. She just knows that she wants it done because she doesn't like seeing this wealth inequality. And a lot of times these are the kind of people that you have pushing these ideas, and they have no idea how they would actually work, how it would actually be implemented. But they place these ideas in people's heads who don't have time to think through all of this stuff, who go through their daily lives, struggling through with their busy schedules, working their job, barely getting ahead. And then someone comes along and tells them that this system's unfair and that they're getting screwed. And they default to thinking that that's true, and that someone should do something about this. And, people like her are kind of the problem. So that's Dumb Bleep which number was that? Number 5. Let's get to number 6. One of the reasons Democrats are more, this is from Sean on X. One of the reasons Democrats are more anxious about the election is because if Trump wins, we lose rights, a strong economy, healthcare, democracy. And if Harris wins, Trump supporters lose literally nothing. They'll claim otherwise, but they objectively don't lose a thing. Yes, that is accurate. If Trump wins, you'll lose your economy, because the economy sucked under Trump, from what I remember. Your health care, because health care has gotten so much better over the last 3.5 years, much more affordable. They've done a lot to fix the health care system. Democracy is working out really great. That's why Joe Biden's on the ballot this year. And Trump supporters, they don't care about whether or not they want to have, a high-powered rifle with 30-round magazine, or if they want to say the things that they want to say online, if they want to not get locked down in their houses and then talk about maybe something leaking from Wuhan or whatever it is. They won't lose any free speech rights, right? That's not something that's going to happen. It's like there's any number of things we can go down on a list that a Harris administration would take away from people. And the answer is you don't care about those things. You don't think that they're important. And so you're saying that people would lose nothing and that you're the only person that would lose something, even though you haven't. Like I said, did healthcare get better? What is it? What do these things even mean? I don't even know what these things mean. Okay. Got to go a little quicker here because I do have a hard stop at 11 a.m. Number 7, speaking of free speech, I put that one in before for a reason. There's this article in The Atlantic. It's actually an article describing a podcast episode or something, like a 11-minute episode. It's called "I'm Running Out of Ways to Explain How Bad This Is. What's happening in America today is something darker than a misinformation crisis." And it's talking about free speech. It talks a lot about hurricane, FEMA response, stuff like that. Carlos Maza, whose handle is Gay Wonk, says free speech was and is an unmitigated disaster. I know it sounds inflammatory, but every piece of evidence points to the fact that we need really aggressive government regulation of speech platforms. The free market doesn't work, and it never will. We need aggressive government regulation of speech platforms. The question is, as everyone asked, who decides what's disinformation and what's misinformation? And then the thing that this guy would never answer, no way, is, okay, so Trump wins the election. So now you think that the government needs to aggressively regulate speech, right? You think that that should be their job. With Donald Trump as the president, picking all the people who were in the cabinets, who's running all of the agencies, you think the government should aggressively regulate speech. If you don't want your enemies to have the power, then you can't allow that power to exist. This goes for Democrats and Republicans, by the way. There are Democrats who abuse things that Trump created. Look at CISA, which was created in 2019, kind of the center point of a lot of the speech regulation that has happened, the censorship that has happened over the last few years. Look at that. That happened under Trump. You know, the FISA courts, FISA being used against Trump when he was running the first time around. If you don't want your enemies to have that power, then you cannot create that power. You cannot guarantee me or yourself or your friends that the person you agree with is always going to be in office, which is why you can't create that power in the first place. There you go. That's stumbling number 7. Number 8. We're coming up on the anniversary of this. It's tomorrow, but so Byron York says the anniversary of the New York Post breaking the Hunter Biden laptop story. This was on October 14th. Suppressed by the government, tech, and big media organizations in critical days before the 2020 election. And so the anniversary of that story coming out was on October 14th, I believe. Destiny says it was suppressed for one day. And so this is a non-story. This doesn't matter. Destiny is intentionally dense. He should be called density. Instead, he intentionally, there's got to be a term, one of those literary terms for the way that he intentionally acts like he doesn't understand something or acts like what you're saying is stupid when you know that he understands the implications of something. Maybe it was suppressed for a day. People got their accounts locked, whatever, because they were even trying to share the New York Post. They got suspended. We all know how that happened. But to act like this is a non-story that had nothing to do with the election is ridiculous. Okay, I'll tell you why. Because not just they censored the New York Post and anyone who tried to post that link on Twitter back in the day, or they deprioritized it on Facebook and Instagram and all that. We also had this. This is from Politico. Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation, dozens of former intel officials say. More than 50 former intelligence officials signed a letter casting doubt on the provenance of a New York Post story on the former vice president's son. From Business Insider, More than 50 former Intel officials signed a public letter saying they believe the Hunter Biden story has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. The Hill says 50 former intelligence officials warned New York Post story sounds like Russian disinformation. So all those things seem pretty important, and that Politico article came out on October 19th, so the anniversary of which would be tomorrow. That is a pretty big deal. There were 2 surveys, I believe, conducted after the election asking people if they would have known that the Hunter Biden laptop was real and that everything on it was real, would it have changed their vote? And there was a pretty good portion of people who said that it would have changed their vote, so much so that doesn't mean they even had to vote for Trump. If they would have not voted for Biden and decided to not vote, it actually could have changed the outcome of the election. Now, I don't know how accurate these polls were. Don't know exactly what they looked into. So don't take that as something that's written in stone. But it absolutely did have an effect. Not only that, we found out later that the Biden campaign commissioned this letter, and then the CIA helped them by going around getting former intelligence officials to sign on to this. And we found out later also that the FBI knew about this laptop. They knew that it was real and that they had planted this in the minds of the social media companies that this Russian disinformation story was going to be coming out before the election when they knew that it was real. Who got in trouble for that? Can you guys tell me who got in trouble for this? And so for Destiny to act like this is just nothing, this doesn't matter, this is not a big story at all, crazy annoying. And it's really dumb, which is why it's in Dumb Bleep of the Week. We've made it to the last one, which has got a few things in it. It's called Kamala Outreach. Kamala Outreach. Now, what we started with was that Kamala skit. You guys remember that? The Superstar, SNL, the Catholic Charity, the Al Smith dinner, I believe, is what that is called, which apparently everyone does all the time, and she decided not to do. That's one portion of Dumb Bleep number 9. So take what you remember from us listening to that video earlier and apply that to Dumb Bleep number 9, because that is Kamala Outreach when she's doing fine with the ladies, because ladies really, really want to kill their kids, basically have no consequences for actions in one very specific realm. Okay, let's do some more outreach. She's underperforming with black men. So that's a thing. And some people are surprised about this. They're surprised because Kamala is a half black woman. And so naturally, black men should be gravitating towards her because skin color is all that matters, I guess. The one thing she did this week was say black men deserve a president who cares about making their lives better. Okay, so that's one thing. My response to this was, what if there were people who didn't want to be pandered to? They didn't want to be coddled. They didn't want a handout. I'm not saying that specifically applies all the time, but what if promising to coddle people is a bad strategy to win an election? I don't know. Maybe that's not what the problem is, but she's got some policy proposals. Kamala Harris will create an opportunity agenda for black men. Number one, she's going to provide 1 million loans that are fully forgivable up to $20,000 for black entrepreneurs and others to start a business. She's going to support education, training, and mentorship programs that lead to good paying jobs for black men, including pathways to become teachers, because black men have been trying to become teachers this whole time and they just can't get through that very difficult, strenuous system of becoming a teacher. Protect cryptocurrency investments so black men who make them know their money is safe. What are we talking about here? Is this like, is this a big, like, I want a president who's going to protect my cryptocurrency cryptocurrency investment, and us black men just haven't been able to get into cryptocurrency because we don't feel safe enough. What's going on? Launch a national health initiative focused on the illnesses that disproportionately impact black men. Legalize recreational marijuana and create opportunities for black Americans to succeed in this new industry. Okay, I see what we're doing here. Now, what's really funny is she's essentially taking programs that she wants to do and is just recoding them to say that they're going to help black men. Just so you know, like things that she's already going to do, but then she's saying, hey, these are going to help black men. These aren't like specific programs. I'll tell you one, because the first one, provide 1 million loans that are fully forgivable up to $20,000 for black entrepreneurs and others to start a business, is illegal. You can't do that. They tried to forgive the debt of black farmers, and that got shot down in court pretty quickly. You can't do that specifically based on race, thanks to the Civil Rights Act. It's just not something that you can do. The community note under this says the Harris campaign has clarified that the programs listed under the Black Men agenda will be open to all Americans on a race-neutral basis. It's pretty funny. This is from the Wall Street Journal, I think. VP Kamala Harris's opportunity agenda for black men aims to shore up support from a pillar of the Democratic base with a key section promising 1 million loans that are fully forgivable to black entrepreneurs and others to start a business. And it also includes all the things that we just said. While Harris's rhetoric suggests she will provide such benefits specifically to black men and women, it turns out that the words "and others" are doing a ton of work. The campaign says the programs listed under the Black Men agenda will be open to all Americans on a race-neutral basis. So, it's literally just a meme, and it's like, here's a thing that I want to do, and this is going to be good for black men. It did sound like it was going to be specifically for black men, but that's illegal. It's actually open for everyone, and you're just trying to pander to people to get votes. Obama was out there doing a little bit of chastised pandering, which is a super good strategy, really good strategy. I think Stephen A. Smith is in it. This is a response from Stephen A. Smith, and I thought it was a good response, even though I find him to be a fairly annoying person most of the time. But Obama suggested that she's underperforming with black men because they are sexist. That's a way to win. Like, oh yeah, they just called me sexist. I guess now I'm going to go vote for her because I don't want them to call me sexist. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah, it's not good.
I want you to hear exactly what this man had to say.
I'm speaking to men directly now. Part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. That's not acceptable.
Respectfully, President Obama, what you said is not acceptable. Is it possible that the only reason
Mr. Charles Chuck Thompson is in the room
may not be inclined to vote, or they may be a bit disenchanted, or dare I say may even be willing to go as far as voting for Trump? Is it possible,
hello friends,
that it's policy as opposed to misogyny, inflation, the cost of living, the price of gas, the price of groceries, that don't matter? Immigration and our borders, and this belief that there's an elevated level of sensitivity towards them, as opposed to black folks struggling, if not starving, in this country. Yes, that plays a role too. When the mayor of New York was talking about $53 million in prepaid credit cards for immigrants who came across our borders illegally and having prepaid credit cards for them. And I said, wait a minute, black folks been starving for years. We ain't get that. You don't think they notice?
Looks good. All right, so that was pretty good. Pretty good from Stephen A. Smith. Good response to that. Really, really bad move from Obama. I would have liked to hear something more like, we don't need people to take care of us. We don't care that you're promising to give us all this free stuff because we have our own agency and our own personal responsibility, and we're going to do it on our own, and we're sick of people calling us. Instead, his argument was, well, they're giving the Mexicans credit cards, prepaid credit cards, and not black people, and that's unfair. Like, that's okay. Not not the perfect argument, but a good response nonetheless. And then we have the real men, the men for Kamala Harris. I think this happened over the weekend. And I'm going to play that real quick. Like I said, I do have a hard stop at 11. And so we're going to see if we are man enough to vote for Kamala Harris. And just so you guys know, I have not seen this ad. But we're going to go ahead and get voting going right after this ad, okay? I have not seen it. But they have an issue with men. They can't do it because men, of course, are sexist, apparently. And I saw a post the other day. It was like, hey, men have been doing this for 248 years. Maybe it's time to give the girls a try. And my response was, really, girls? You only get one first impression, okay? Ours was George Washington, all right? You want your first impression to be this? Really? That's your first impression? You want her to be the last female president? Then go ahead. Go ahead and do it. That's great. All right, let's see this ad, though. This is my first time seeing it.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, and I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Meat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast. I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women. They want to control their bodies? I say go for it. They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want. Woman wants to be president? Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement. Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions. Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women. Or one of those pants books that the sisters like. I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids. In front of my horse. I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually. Good Will Hunting. West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful. That's not how my mama raised me. I love women. I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
That was the gayest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. That was really bad. I mean, the funny part about this is when they do these ads, they try to present it to you as like they went out and they found the real guy that happened to be sitting on his pickup truck, and he looked like he was sitting on something else, by the way. And they just had him talk about this, but they're all actors. Yeah, half of them are actually gay actors. And none of them are the real people that they were just playing, just so you know. I don't care that they're gay, but I'm just saying that's the gayest ad I've ever seen. And good God. She doesn't get it. They don't get it. Let's get the votes in. We got to go. We got to get out of here. I don't know what you guys are still hanging around here for. Go and get your votes in. Number 1 was Stealth Edit. Number 2, Trump confused. Number 3, migrant workers. Number 4, Trump is the only option if you want to whatever. Number 5 is the privileged socialist girl. Number 6, Trump supporters lose nothing. Number 7, free speech. Number 8, Destiny. Number 9, Kamala Outreach. All those videos included, and we don't have to wait too much time here. Number 9, Kamala Outreach is the winner. That is the winner for Dumb Bleep of the Week this week. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll see you guys again next Tuesday night.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first. Nearly